Alliance of Evil. Dash. In the dimly lit bedroom of Emperor Rudra, the atmosphere was tense. The rich, heavy curtains muted the outside light, creating an intimate setting for the serious conversation between Rudra and Belgrind. They sat facing each other, the Emperor's eyes reflecting a calm yet intense focus, while Belgrind's expression was tinged with unease. Belgrind's voice broke the silence, carrying a mix of curiosity and apprehension. Rudra, about Tatsuya's report, the name of the new recruit, Yuki Nava, it struck a chord. Nava is a name that should only be known to those of direct lineage to my brother. As far as we know, only two have ever borne that name, Reinhard and Milam, the children of the Creator. Rudra's eyes narrowed thoughtfully. Indeed, it is a name of great significance. If someone is using it now, it must be investigated. But let us think this through carefully. Belgrind nodded, her mind racing. Milam is under constant surveillance. We know her every move, and there have been no indications of her bearing a child. That leaves only one possible connection, Reinhard. A heavy silence fell over the room as they considered the implications. The very mention of Reinhard's name brought with it a sense of foreboding. He was a figure of unparalleled power and mystery, and his return would have profound consequences. Belgrind's voice was barely above a whisper. Could it be that this Yuki Nava is connected to Reinhard? The thought alone is unsettling. What should we do, Rudra? The Emperor, who was not truly Rudra but the ultimate skill, Justice Lord Michael, gazed at her with a calm that belied the storm of thoughts within. Michael had long harbored a longing for its master, Beldanava, and the potential return of his lineage was a matter of deep personal interest. We must proceed with caution, Michael said, his voice steady. This information is sensitive and must be kept secret. We cannot afford to act rashly. We need to verify the connection ourselves before taking any steps. Belgrind's eyes showed a flicker of confusion, quickly replaced by determination. She trusted Rudra implicitly, not realizing that the man she loved had passed away decades ago, and it was Michael who now guided her actions, subtly ensuring her loyalty. You're right, she agreed. We cannot let this information spread until we know more. But if there is a connection to Reinhard, it could mean he is indeed planning to return. His Gladsheimer vanished when he did, and its reappearance would be a significant event. Michael nodded. Exactly. Reinhard's potential return is a matter of great concern. We must be vigilant and gather more information about this recruit. Only then can we decide on the appropriate course of action. Belgrind leaned back, the weight of their discussion settling heavily on her shoulders. We'll keep a close watch on Yuki Nava and see if he reveals anything that might confirm our suspicions. Until then, we remain silent. Michael gave a reassuring nod. Agreed. We will handle this discreetly. For now, let us maintain our focus on our current objectives and ensure that no one else learns of this potential threat. As they concluded their conversation, the room fell silent once more, but the air was charged with unspoken tension. Michael's thoughts were consumed by the possibilities, his desire to reunite with his master driving his every move. Belgrind, unaware of the true nature of the being before her, felt a growing sense of urgency and responsibility. Belgrind left the room, her footsteps echoing down the corridor as she went to attend to military matters. The heavy door closed behind her, leaving Michael alone in the dimly lit chamber. The silence was thick, almost palpable, as he pondered the implications of the report. Michael's thoughts drifted back to Reinhard, a figure shrouded in both awe and fear. Reinhard, the son of Beldanava, the man who had slain his own father, the Creator. Michael had witnessed firsthand the incredible power and terrifying resolve of Reinhard. He knew that if there was anyone who held the key to resurrecting Beldanava, it would be Reinhard. Reinhard, Michael mused aloud, the name lingering in the air like a dark omen. A man of unparalleled strength and determination. If the prophecy is true, if he is destined to return and regain his full power, then I must be prepared. The prophecy was chilling. Over 900 years, he shall recover his heartbeat. Over 90 years, he shall recover his intellect. Over 9 years, he shall recover his memories. Over 9 days, he shall recover his power. And over 9 minutes, he shall destroy the world. Michael knew he could not allow that last part to come to pass, but the potential for Reinhard to revive Beldanava was too significant to ignore. Michael's loyalty to Beldanava was absolute. His every action was driven by the desire to see his master revived. If aligning with Reinhard was the only way to achieve that goal, then so be it. But Michael was also cautious. Reinhard's return could mean unprecedented upheaval, and he had to ensure that he could control the situation to his advantage. He recalled the countless battles and the profound impact Reinhard had on the world. The mere mention of his name could inspire fear and reverence in equal measure. Michael needed to assess the true nature of this new recruit, Yuki Nava, and determine if he indeed had a connection to Reinhard. The possibility that Reinhard's essence lived on in this recruit was too crucial to overlook. Michael's eyes narrowed as he formulated a plan. He needed to see this Yuki Nava up close, to gauge his power and potential. The Emperor's audience would be the perfect opportunity to test the waters. Reaching out to a nearby communication device, Michael summoned Tatsuya Kondo. The loyal officer appeared swiftly, his demeanor as cold and calculating as ever. Your Majesty, Tatsuya said with a respectful bow. Michael, maintaining the guise of Emperor Rudra, addressed him. Tatsuya, I have a task for you. Summon the new recruit. Inform him that the Emperor grants him an audience. Tatsuya's expression remained stoic, but there was a flicker of curiosity in his eyes. As you command, Your Majesty. I will bring him immediately. As Tatsuya left to carry out the order, Michael settled back into his thoughts. This audience would reveal much about Yuki Nava. Was he merely a talented warrior, or was there something more, a spark of the legendary power that once belonged to Reinhard? The room was quiet once more, but Michael's mind was a storm of calculations and possibilities. He could not afford to underestimate this recruit. If Yuki truly held a connection to Reinhard, it could change everything. Tatsuya Kondo returned to the chamber with a figure beside him, a young man with striking black hair, a composed demeanor, and a presence that seemed to warp the very air around him. Yuki Nava Kagurazaka stepped forward, his eyes scanning the room with a mix of curiosity and calculation. His amiable smile did little to mask the sinister aura that clung to him like a shadow. Michael, still in the guise of Emperor Rudra, observed the young man intently. The twisted nature of Yuki's core was almost palpable, a dark and familiar resonance that stirred something deep within Michael's memories. There was an undeniable connection to something ancient, something powerful. Despite his pleasant exterior, Yuki exuded an evil aura so potent that it made Michael's skin crawl. Your Majesty, Tatsuya said, breaking the silence as he bowed, I present Yuki Nava Kagurazaka. Michael's eyes narrowed slightly as he regarded Yuki. The young man's twisted core and the familiarity it held were unsettling. He could see through the facade, recognizing the dark potential that lay beneath the surface. Yuki's smile was calm and composed, yet there was a flicker of something dangerous behind those eyes. Yuki Nava Kagurazaka, Michael began, his voice steady but carrying an undercurrent of scrutiny, you have been making quite an impression. I have but one question for you. Yuki's smile remained in place, though his eyes sharpened with interest. Of course, Your Majesty. I am at your service. Michael leaned forward slightly, his gaze piercing. Tell me, are you aware of an existence named Reinhard? For the briefest moment, Yuki's composed facade cracked. His body flinched involuntarily, a reaction so swift that most would have missed it. But not Michael. He saw it, and he knew. The name Reinhard had elicited a response that Yuki could not completely suppress. Yuki quickly regained his composure, but the damage was done. His flinch, though minuscule, was a significant tell. It was the first time Yuki had ever lost control of himself in such a manner, and it spoke volumes to Michael. The chamber fell silent, the tension thick in the air. Michael's eyes never left Yuki's, a knowing smile curling his lips. He extended his hand towards the young man, a gesture both inviting and commanding. Yuki Nava Kagurazaka, Michael said, his voice filled with a dark promise, I see potential in you. Are you interested in joining me? Yuki's eyes widened slightly, the offer taking him by surprise. He stared at Michael's outstretched hand, the weight of the moment pressing down on him. The dark aura that surrounded him seemed to pulse, reacting to the gravity of the decision before him. The silence stretched, each second feeling like an eternity. Yuki's mind raced, thoughts colliding as he considered the implications. This was not just an invitation, it was a test, a challenge, and perhaps, an opportunity. Finally, Yuki's smile returned, but this time it was tinged with a hint of something more, ambition, perhaps, or a recognition of shared purpose. He reached out and grasped Michael's hand firmly, his eyes meeting those of the Emperor with a newfound resolve. I am honored, Your Majesty, Yuki said, his voice steady and resolute. I will not disappoint you. Michael's smile widened, a sense of satisfaction settling over him. This young man, with his twisted core and dark potential, was indeed connected to Reinhard. How deep that connection ran remained to be seen, but for now, Michael had found a valuable ally. Dot. 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 In the sprawling icy expanse of the northern continent, a secluded castle stood in stark contrast to the desolate landscape. Inside, the atmosphere was warm and inviting, with the scent of tea wafting through the air. Seated around an elegantly set table were Guy Crimson, the demon lord, his two primordial maids, and the ice dragon, Belzard. It had been 997 years since the ominous prophecy revealed itself, and the weight of its words hung heavily in the air. Guy Crimson, with his trademark crimson hair and sharp eyes, sipped his tea thoughtfully. Despite his outwardly calm demeanor, there was a restlessness about him. The prophecy foretold the return of Reinhard, and each passing year brought them closer to that fateful day. Guy's eyes narrowed as he pondered the prophecy once more, his mind racing with unanswered questions and scenarios. 3 years left, Guy muttered, his gaze distant. Reinhard should have regained his memories by now, but there hasn't been any sign of him. Belzard, the majestic ice dragon, sat across from Guy, her serene presence a stark contrast to his anxious energy. She set her teacup down and gave him a reassuring smile. Guy, you worry too much. We've prepared for this. If Reinhard truly returns, we will face him together. Nothing bad will happen. Guy sighed, leaning back in his chair. Belzard's calm confidence was comforting, but it didn't entirely quell his concerns. I know, Belzard. But the uncertainty is what bothers me. Where could he be? Why haven't we seen any sign of him yet? Belzard chuckled softly, her icy blue eyes twinkling with amusement. You always overthink things, Guy. Remember, we've taken every precaution. Reinhard won't catch us off guard this time. Guy nodded, a slight smile tugging at the corners of his mouth. Belzard was right. They had created various contingencies to counter Reinhard's return. Precautions against Feldway and Zelenus had also been established. Unlike their devastating defeat 2 millennia ago, Guy was confident in their preparations. I suppose you're right, Guy conceded, setting his cup down. We've done everything we can. Now we just have to wait and see what happens. The conversation shifted to the current state of the demon lords. Guy's expression turned contemplative as he considered their strength and potential. The new generation of demon lords is lacking. Most of them are fodder compared to the first and second generations. Belzard raised an eyebrow. Except for Leon, right? Guy nodded, a hint of admiration in his eyes. Yes, Leon has potential. He might be a 4th-generation demon lord, but he's shown remarkable growth. Still, the rest are weak. They have no idea who Reinhard is or what he's capable of. If a battle starts, I wonder how useful they'll be. Guy's primordial maids, standing silently behind him, exchanged glances but remained quiet. Their loyalty to Guy was unwavering, and they understood the gravity of his concerns. Belzard reached out and placed a hand on Guy's arm, her touch cool and reassuring. We'll manage, Guy. When the time comes, we'll face Reinhard together. I will really punish that nephew of mine. Guy smiled, a genuine warmth in his expression. You're right, Belzard. Hell, I won't accept a defeat this time. The heavy atmosphere lifted slightly, replaced by a sense of camaraderie and determination. The prophecy still loomed over them, but they were ready. They had faced insurmountable odds before, and they would do it again if necessary. As they continued their tea, Guy's thoughts drifted to the past. The battles they had fought, the victories and losses, and the allies they had made along the way. Despite the uncertainty of the future, one thing was clear: when the time came, they would stand together against whatever challenges lay ahead. The conversation gradually shifted to lighter topics, the tension easing as they enjoyed their time together. For now, they could afford a moment of peace, knowing that they had done everything possible to prepare for the prophecy's fulfillment. A few months had passed since Rimuru and Milam had become friends. Rimuru couldn't quite put his finger on it, but Milam seemed to treat him more like a family member than just a friend. Not that he minded, having a catastrophe-level ally like Milam was certainly better than having her as an enemy. Today, however, Rimuru was stumped by a different problem. He had taken on the role of a teacher in the Engracia kingdom, a twist of fate he hadn't entirely planned for, but one he had come to accept. He deeply empathized with his young students and wanted to find a way to prolong their lives, which were threatened by their unique abilities. He sat in his office, a small communication orb glowing softly on his desk as he waited for Veldora to answer. Finally, the orb flickered, and the image of the dragon's face appeared, lounging in his usual carefree manner. Veldora, I need your help, Rimuru said, his voice tinged with desperation. I need to find a way to prolong the lives of my students. Any ideas? Veldora stretched lazily, yawning as if he had just woken up from a nap. Prolonging lives, huh? Maybe they need to eat more nutritious food. Or, oh, how about some intense training? That always helps, right? Rimuru sighed, pinching the bridge of his nose. Beldora, I don't think pushing them through harsh training will help their lifespan. Beldora tapped his chin thoughtfully. What about some magical artifacts? Maybe there's a relic somewhere that can grant immortality. Rimuru shook his head. I've considered that, but it's too risky. I need something reliable. The dragon's face lit up with another idea. How about asking Milam? She's got a lot of strange knowledge tucked away in that childish head of hers. Rimuru raised an eyebrow, skepticism clear on his face. Milam, really? What could she possibly know about something like this? Beldora grinned, clearly amused. You'd be surprised. She's not just all brawn and destruction. Go on, give her a call. What's the worst that could happen? Sighing, Rimuru decided to take Beldora's advice. He activated another communication orb, and within moments, Milam's bright, cheerful face popped into view. Rimuru. What's up? She exclaimed, her energy palpable even through the magical connection. Hey, Milam. I need your help with something. I'm trying to find a way to prolong the lives of my students. They're in danger because of their otherworld or body, and I'm at a loss for what to do. Milam's expression shifted from cheerful to thoughtful as she pondered the problem. Otherworlder, you say? That's a tough one. Let me think. Oh, I know exactly what you need. My friend in the labyrinth can help. She's been really bored lately, and this will be the perfect thing to get her out of her funk. Rimuru blinked in surprise. Labyrinth. Friend. What are you talking about? Milam laughed, the sound light and carefree. Come on, Rimuru. Haven't you heard of Ramirez? She's the queen of the labyrinth. She can definitely help with something like this. Rimuru scratched his head, still a bit skeptical. Ramirez, huh? Alright, if you say so. When can we meet her? Right now. Milam exclaimed. I'm coming to get you. And bring your students too. Ramirez loves guests. Rimuru smiled, despite his reservations. Milam's enthusiasm was infectious. Alright, we'll be ready. See you soon, Milam. The communication orb dimmed, and Rimuru stood up, stretching his arms. He called his students together, explaining the plan to them. They were a mix of nervous and excited, but they trusted Rimuru and followed his lead. Soon, they were gathered at the entrance of the labyrinth, with Milam bouncing on her heels in excitement. All right, everyone, she said, her voice carrying over the group. Let's go meet Ramirez. As they approached the labyrinth, Milam's excitement became palpable. She grinned at Rimuru and his students, her eyes twinkling with mischief. Watch this, Rimuru, she said with a giggle, before launching herself at the massive stone doors that marked the labyrinth's entrance. With a deafening crash, the doors shattered into pieces, dust and debris flying everywhere. Milam stood amidst the rubble, her hands on her hips and a triumphant look on her face. Rimuru sighed, shaking his head with a mixture of amusement and exasperation. Did you really have to destroy the entrance, Milam? He asked, though he already knew the answer. Of course. Milam replied cheerfully. It's the quickest way in. Deep within the labyrinth, Ramirez was lounging around in Reinhard's room, absent-mindedly flipping through a book. The sudden explosion jolted her upright, her eyes wide with alarm. What in the world? She muttered, quickly teleporting to the source of the commotion. As soon as she materialized near the entrance, she spotted Milam standing proudly among the ruins. Milam, she shouted, her voice a mix of frustration and resignation. Milam burst out laughing, her laughter echoing through the labyrinth. Hey, Ramirez. Long time no see. Ramirez floated over, her tiny fists clenched in irritation. Do you have to break things every time you visit? This place is not your personal playground. Milam shrugged, still grinning. Ah, come on. You know you missed me. The banter between the two continued, with Ramirez listing all the times Milam had caused trouble in the past and Milam brushing off each complaint with a casual wave. Their exchange was lively and animated, with Ramirez growing increasingly exasperated while Milam remained unfazed. And another thing, Ramirez said, poking Milam in the chest with a tiny finger. You never clean up after yourself. Last time, you left a giant crater in the training grounds. Milam laughed. Yeah, that was fun, wasn't it? Ramirez huffed, crossing her arms. Fun for you, maybe. I had to fix it. Their back and forth continued for a good while, with Rimuru and his students watching in a mix of amusement and bewilderment. Rimuru couldn't help but smile at the sight of the two powerful beings bickering like old friends. Finally, Ramirez seemed to notice Rimuru and his students standing nearby. She floated over, her irritation giving way to curiosity. And who are these? She asked, her tone less hostile but still wary. Before Rimuru could introduce himself, Ramirez's eyes widened, and she stared at Rimuru with a look of shock. You're different, she murmured, her voice trembling slightly. Rimuru tilted his head in confusion. Different? What do you mean? Ramirez didn't answer immediately. She hovered closer, scrutinizing Rimuru with an intensity that made him uneasy. The silence stretched on, heavy and charged, as if she was trying to piece together a puzzle that eluded her grasp. Milam, noticing Ramirez's reaction, stopped laughing and turned serious. What's wrong, Ramirez? You look like you've seen a ghost. Ramirez finally tore her gaze away from Rimuru and looked at Milam. I don't know, Milam. But there's something about this slime, something familiar and unsettling. Rimuru felt a chill run down his spine. What could possibly be so familiar about him to cause such a reaction? He exchanged a glance with Milam, who seemed equally puzzled. Well, whatever it is, Milam said, trying to lighten the mood, I brought him here because he needs your help, Ramirez. His students are in danger, and we're hoping you might have a solution. Ramirez took a deep breath, regaining her composure. All right, let's discuss this further inside. Follow me. As they followed Ramirez deeper into the labyrinth, Rimuru couldn't shake the feeling that there was more to his connection with these powerful beings than he understood. The reaction of Ramirez hinted at secrets he had yet to uncover. The group followed Ramirez deeper into the labyrinth, where they entered a surprisingly cozy chamber. Despite the grandeur of the labyrinth, Ramirez's room was cluttered with an assortment of items, books piled haphazardly, strange artifacts scattered about, and an odd collection of fast food wrappers. Ramirez floated over to a table laden with an assortment of fast food, burgers, fries, and sodas. She grabbed a burger and took a huge bite, munching noisily. Rimuru blinked in surprise. Ramirez, he said, where did you get all this food? I didn't expect to see Western fast food here. Ramirez, still chewing, glanced at Rimuru. Oh, this, she said through a mouthful of burger. Milam's brother gave me the recipe. Pretty neat, huh? Rimuru raised an eyebrow. Milam's brother. I thought you said she only had one brother, and he's been gone for thousands of years. Ramirez shrugged, taking another bite. Yep, he's been gone a long time. But he sure knew how to cook. Left behind all sorts of recipes. You'd be surprised at how delicious some of them are. Rimuru felt a shiver of suspicion. Just how old are these recipes, exactly? They seem pretty modern. Thousands of years old, I guess, Ramirez said nonchalantly, licking ketchup off her fingers. Now, what's the problem you needed my help with? Rimuru shook his head, pushing his curiosity aside for now. Well, I have these students, he began, motioning to the 5 children who had been quietly observing the strange interaction. They're otherworlders, and their bodies contain a berserk energy that's slowly destroying them from the inside. I need to find a way to stabilize that energy. Ramirez's eyes widened, and she nearly choked on her fries. Otherworlders, you say? Berserk energy. That's serious stuff. She wiped her mouth with the back of her hand and floated closer, suddenly all business. You need to stabilize their energy, right? I think a superior spirit should do the trick. A superior spirit. Rimuru repeated, a glimmer of hope in his eyes. Yep, Ramirez said, nodding vigorously. Superior spirits can merge with them and stabilize their energy. It's a pretty straightforward solution. Rimuru felt a wave of relief wash over him. That's perfect. Thank you, Ramirez. His opinion of her had greatly improved, and he couldn't help but smile. Ramirez waved a hand dismissively, returning to her fries. No problem. Happy to help. However, as Rimuru looked around the room, his raised impression quickly plummeted. The place was a mess, with food wrappers and empty soda cans strewn about. Books were stacked precariously, and various trinkets lay in disarray. Rimuru couldn't help but laugh a little. You really live like this, Ramirez. Ramirez glanced around, seemingly unfazed by the mess. What? It's cozy. Milam joined in, laughing heartily. Ramirez has always been a bit of a slob. But she's got a good heart. Rimuru shook his head, still smiling. Well, I appreciate the help, messy room or not. Ramirez grinned, her mouth full of fries. Anytime, Rimuru. Just don't expect me to clean up. Ramirez, finishing off her fries with a contented sigh, floated up and clapped her hands. All right, everyone. It's time to lead you to the summoning room. She turned and motioned for the group to follow her deeper into the labyrinth. Rimuru and his students followed Ramirez through winding corridors, their excitement growing with each step. Milam walked beside Rimuru, occasionally glancing at him with a curious expression. As they reached the summoning room, Rimuru couldn't help but marvel at its beauty. Large crystals lined the walls, their soft, ethereal glow illuminating the room with a serene light. The atmosphere was both majestic and calming, a stark contrast to the chaos they had left behind in Ramirez's chamber. This is the summoning room, Ramirez announced, her voice echoing softly in the spacious hall. It's pretty simple. All you need to do is stand in the middle and pray. If a spirit accepts your prayer, then you're in luck. If not, well, better luck next time. Rimuru smiled reassuringly at his students. Alright, let's get started. Chloe, why don't you go first? Chloe Aubert, the youngest of the students, stepped forward hesitantly. She glanced back at Rimuru, who gave her an encouraging nod. Her worries seemed to melt away as she saw his reassuring smile. Chloe took a deep breath and walked to the center of the room. She closed her eyes and began to pray, her small hands clasped together. The room fell silent, and everyone watched with bated breath. Suddenly, a powerful energy filled the room. The crystals around them started to pulsate with an intense light, and a familiar phenomenon began to unfold. Ramirez's eyes widened in shock. This can't be happening again, Ramirez muttered, her gaze fixed on the ceiling. Milam, sensing the gravity of the situation, turned to Ramirez with concern. Ramirez, what's going on? Milam asked, her voice filled with unease. Ramirez didn't respond. Her eyes were glued to the figure that was slowly materializing above them. Rimuru and the others followed her gaze, and their eyes widened as they saw a woman in a white dress floating gracefully above them. Her presence radiated an overwhelming aura of power and tranquility. Ramirez began shaking her head in denial. No, it can't be. It's her. She glanced at Rimuru, her eyes filled with a mix of fear and awe. For a brief moment, she saw the silhouette of Reinhard standing behind him, and she whispered, is this the work of fate? Rimuru, unaware of the weight of the situation, stared warily at the spirit. He sensed the immense power she held, but before he could react, the spirit rushed toward him. Her movements were swift and graceful, and in an instant, she was in front of him. The spirit gently took Rimuru's face in her hands and, much to his surprise, leaned in and kissed him. The kiss was brief but left Rimuru stunned. The spirit then turned her attention to Chloe, her ethereal form merging with the young girl. The intense pressure in the room dissipated as the merging completed, and Chloe's eyes opened, now glowing with a new, serene light. The room fell silent once more, the only sound being the soft hum of the crystals. Rimuru looked around, his mind racing with questions. What had just happened? Why had the spirit reacted that way? Milam and Rimuru exchanged glances, both of them sensing the significance of the event. Ramirez, still in a state of shock, floated down to Rimuru's side. Rimuru, do you have any idea what just happened? She asked, her voice trembling slightly. Rimuru shook his head, his thoughts still jumbled. No, but I have a feeling this is just the beginning of something much bigger. Ramirez nodded, her expression serious. We need to be careful. That spirit, she was someone very important. And the fact that she chose Chloe means there's more at play here than we understand. Milam stepped forward, her usual playful demeanor replaced with a rare look of determination. Whatever it is, we'll face it together. We're friends, right? Rimuru smiled, feeling a renewed sense of resolve. Right. Let's get through this, one step at a time. With that, the group exited the summoning room, ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead, united by a bond that was growing stronger with each passing moment. Dash. Please give your support. Web links. Please give your support. Web links. Asthoglho creators' thoughts. 8 comments 0 vote. Walpurgis 1. Don't expect much, just Walpurgis alright. Dash. Time had passed quickly since Rimuru's peaceful days in his burgeoning town. The once thriving community had been thrown into chaos by an attack from other worlders sent by the Falmouth Kingdom, greedy to plunder his country's resources. The assault had left many of Rimuru's cherished subordinates dead, and the heart-wrenching sight of their lifeless bodies had ignited a fierce resolve within him. Determined to save them, Rimuru embarked on the dark path to becoming a demon lord, hoping that the transformation would grant him the power to resurrect his beloved companions. Amidst his grief and anger, Rimuru received news that Milam, his dear friend, had been controlled by Clayman. This betrayal only fueled his rage. For the first time in this new world, Rimuru took human lives, massacring 10,000 soldiers in a brutal display of power to achieve his evolution. In the process, he summoned an archdemon, who had seemed oddly elated, muttering something cryptic about fulfilling a task that he was right about. Rimuru named the archdemon Diablo, and he joined the ranks of Rimuru's trusted followers. Now, in his private quarters, Rimuru sat surrounded by his loyal Kijin subordinates and the enigmatic Diablo. He was deep in thought, contemplating how to navigate the impending Demon Lord banquet, also known as Walpurgis, where he would finally confront Clayman. Diablo stood at his side, a confident smile on his face. Rimuru-sama, Diablo said smoothly, his crimson eyes gleaming with anticipation. There is nothing to fear. Your presence alone will command respect. The other demon lords will undoubtedly react strongly to your arrival, but pay it no mind. You have the strength to face them. Shion, his self-proclaimed secretary, nodded enthusiastically. That's right, Rimuru-sama. We'll show those demon lords your true power. No one can stand in your way. Rimuru managed a small smile at their confidence, but his thoughts remained troubled. It's not just about showing my power, Shion. We need to find a way to punish Clayman and free Milam from his control. I can't afford to make any mistakes. Shion's eyes blazed with determination. Leave it to us, Rimuru-sama. We'll make sure that Snake pays for what he's done. Rimuru turned his gaze to his assembled followers, his resolve hardening. I need to decide who to bring to the banquet. We need to be prepared for anything. Veldora, who had been lounging casually in the corner, suddenly stood up with a grin. I'll go with you, Rimuru. Those other demon lords won't know what hit them with the great storm dragon by your side. Shion immediately jumped in, her face lit with excitement. I want to go too, Rimuru-sama. I can't let you face this alone. Rimuru sighed, knowing there was no point in arguing with his enthusiastic subordinates. All right. Veldora, Shion, you'll come with me to Walpurgis. We'll face whatever challenges await us together. As they waited for their guide to the banquet, Rimuru couldn't help but feel a mix of apprehension and determination. The path ahead was fraught with danger, but he was resolved to face it head-on, with his loyal friends by his side. He only hoped that his newfound power as a demon lord would be enough to protect those he cared about and bring justice to those who had wronged him. The atmosphere in the room was tense yet charged with a sense of purpose. Rimuru's subordinates were eager to prove themselves, and Diablo's enigmatic smile hinted at knowledge and power that Rimuru had yet to fully understand. The path to the Demon Lord banquet was set, and Rimuru knew that this was just the beginning of a new chapter in his journey. With his friends and allies by his side, he felt ready to face whatever challenges awaited him, even if it meant confronting the unknown and uncovering the secrets of his own mysterious connection to powers far greater than his own. In the quiet tension of the room, a soft knock echoed, drawing everyone's attention. The door opened to reveal Misery, the green primordial and the loyal maid of Guy Crimson. Her elegant demeanor was matched by the faint aura of power she exuded. She stepped inside and lowered her head slightly in greeting to Rimuru. Lord Rimuru, it is an honor to meet you. I have been sent to escort you to the Demon Lord banquet, Misery said in a calm, measured tone. However, her eyes widened slightly as she noticed a figure standing in the corner with a look of utter devastation. Diablo, who was usually composed and confident, wore a sorrowful expression, clearly disappointed that Rimuru hadn't chosen him to accompany them to the banquet. Misery took an instinctive step back, her surprise evident. What are you doing here, Noir? Misery asked, addressing Diablo by the name she knew him by in the underworld. The primordials had known each other since time immemorial, and she couldn't fathom why Noir would be here of all places. Diablo's sorrowful face quickly transformed into a mischievous grin. Ah, Misery was it now, it's been a while. But I am no longer Noir. I am Diablo, the loyal servant of the great Rimuru-sama. He gestured grandly to Rimuru, his eyes shining with pride and devotion. Misery's gaze shifted to Rimuru, her expression a mix of disbelief and bewilderment. You named him. You summoned and named Noir. She asked, her voice laced with incredulity. Naming a primordial was beyond dangerous, it was insanity. Rimuru gave a sheepish smile and shrugged. Well, he seemed like a good guy, and he's been pretty helpful. Misery shook her head in disbelief, her thoughts racing. Summoning and naming Noir, now known as Diablo, was the most insane thing she had ever heard. Noir was practically on par with her master, Guy Crimson, in terms of power and potential. This slime, Rimuru, had either extraordinary luck or a death wish. Rimuru-sama is indeed extraordinary, Diablo continued, his grin widening. He has recognized my true potential and given me a purpose beyond anything I could have imagined. Misery sighed and decided to ignore the absurdity for now. There were more pressing matters at hand. Very well, she said, shaking her head slightly. Let's get going. The portal to the banquet is ready. With a wave of her hand, Misery created a shimmering portal that led to the location of the Demon Lord banquet. Rimuru, Veldora, Xian, and Misery stepped forward, ready to embark on this significant journey. Rimuru felt a mix of excitement and trepidation as he glanced back at Diablo, who was still sulking but gave a nod of encouragement. Take care of the town while we're gone, Diablo, Rimuru said, offering a reassuring smile. Diablo bowed deeply. Of course, Rimuru-sama. I shall ensure everything remains in order until your triumphant return. As they approached the portal, Rimuru couldn't help but feel a surge of anticipation. This banquet would be a turning point, not just for him, but for his entire kingdom. He had to be strong, clever, and prepared for whatever awaited him on the other side. Misery led the way through the portal, her green hair flowing behind her as she stepped into the shimmering light. Rimuru followed closely, with Veldora and Xian flanking him. The portal closed behind them, sealing their path to the Demon Lord banquet, a gathering that would determine the future of the Demon Lords and perhaps reveal more about Rimuru's own mysterious destiny. The atmosphere was charged with a mix of anticipation and tension as they stepped into the unknown, ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead. Dot. 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 The grand banquet hall was an opulent display of power and status, a fitting setting for the gathering of the most powerful beings in the world. Ornate chandeliers cast a warm glow over the long, polished table where the demon lords were seated, each exuding an aura of authority and dread. The only empty seats were reserved for the latest arrivals, Rimuru and his entourage. Clayman, sitting with a confident smile, glanced at the other demon lords. Beside him, Milam sat with a blank, emotionless face, a stark contrast to her usual vibrant demeanor. Clayman reveled in the thought of controlling her, believing that with Milam under his thumb, his dominance would be unchallenged. His patience, however, was wearing thin. Why are we still waiting? Clayman sneered, leaning forward to address the other demon lords. We shouldn't have to delay our business for a mere slime. Let's begin without him. A hush fell over the room as the demon lords turned their attention to Clayman. His words hung in the air, a mixture of arrogance and impatience. The silence was broken by the cold, piercing voice of Luminous Valentine, the elegant yet fearsome demon lord of the night. Shut your trap, Clayman, Luminous said icily, her gaze cutting through him like a dagger. You're too loud. Clayman's confident smile faltered. His face flushed with anger, but he knew better than to challenge Luminous here and now. With a growl, he leaned back, choosing to remain silent. His plan hinged on keeping his composure until the right moment. The tension in the room was palpable as they waited for the last guest to arrive. The atmosphere was thick with anticipation and the unspoken power dynamics of those present. Suddenly, a humongous energy began to seep into the room, catching everyone's attention. The presence was unmistakable and commanded respect. The doors to the banquet hall opened, and in walked Rimuru Tempest, flanked by Veldora, Xian, and Misery. Veldora's aura was immense, his presence alone filling the room with an overwhelming power. Reactions varied among the demon lords, but the most noticeable came from Dagruel and Luminous. Dagruel's eyes lit up with joy at seeing his old friend, while Luminous's expression turned into one of annoyance, clearly displeased by Veldora's reappearance. For Clayman and Frey, Veldora's presence was almost paralyzing. The sheer force of his energy made them freeze for a few seconds, the reality of his power sinking in. But as they adjusted to the overwhelming aura, their gaze shifted to Rimuru, the supposed mere slime who had managed to bring Veldora, the storm dragon, as his ally. Rimuru walked with a calm confidence, his eyes scanning the room, taking in the different expressions of the demon lords. Each of his steps was measured, exuding a quiet strength that belied his small, unassuming form. Xian, by his side, stood tall and ready, her eyes sharp and focused, while Misery led the way with her usual composed grace. The room was filled with a mix of emotions as the demon lords watched Rimuru make his entrance. Some were curious, others skeptical, and a few clearly hostile. But all were aware that this slime was not to be underestimated. Rimuru's appearance had set the stage for what would be a critical and possibly tumultuous gathering of the demon lords. As Rimuru took his seat at the grand table, an intense, almost tangible pressure descended upon him. His vision momentarily blurred under the crushing weight of the aura, and he sensed it was not a mere warning but a direct challenge. Veldora, standing protectively by his side, immediately bristled with anger. His eyes narrowed into slits, and a low growl rumbled in his throat. Who dares mess with my friend? Veldora's voice boomed through the hall, echoing off the high ceilings. His gaze fixed on Guy Crimson, the ruler of the northern continent and one of the oldest and most powerful demon lords present. Guy's expression was unusually serious, his red eyes boring into Rimuru with a mix of curiosity and intensity. Veldora, step back, Guy commanded, his tone brooking no argument. I have something to check, and it concerns your friend. Veldora's eyes flashed with fury. You think you can just. Veldora, Guy cut him off sharply. Don't get in my way. This is important. Ramirez, fluttering nervously near Veldora, piped up. Guy, you're going too far. Rimuru is my friend too. What are you trying to do? Guy's gaze shifted briefly to Ramirez, his expression softening only slightly. This won't endanger him. Trust me. The words seemed to have a calming effect. Both Veldora and Ramirez exchanged glances, their initial resistance melting into reluctant acquiescence. They knew Guy well enough to understand that he wouldn't act recklessly. If he deemed this necessary, there was a deeper reason behind it. Guy's focus returned to Rimuru, his gaze penetrating and unwavering. Rimuru Tempest, he began, his voice resonating with authority and curiosity. Do you know of anyone named Reinhard? The silence that followed was suffocating, the atmosphere thick with tension. Xian, standing resolutely by Rimuru's side, clenched her fists, her eyes darting nervously between Rimuru and the other demon lords. Clayman and Frey, seated further down the table, exchanged uneasy glances, clearly affected by the oppressive atmosphere. Rimuru, however, simply scratched the back of his head, a puzzled expression crossing his face. Reinhard, he echoed, genuinely perplexed. Never heard of him. Is he some kind of big shot or something? Guy continued to scrutinize Rimuru for several long, agonizing seconds, his intense gaze searching for any sign of deception or hidden knowledge. The room seemed to hold its breath, waiting for Guy's verdict. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, Guy's aura retracted, and the crushing pressure lifted. A smile spread across Guy's face, his eyes gleaming with a mix of amusement and relief. I see, he said, his tone lighter, almost casual now. It seems I was mistaken. The tension in the room visibly eased, the suffocating atmosphere dissipating as the other demon lords relaxed. Rimuru let out a breath he didn't realize he was holding, his body subtly unwinding from the sudden pressure. Well then, Guy continued, his voice taking on a more formal tone, let's officially start the banquet. Rimuru glanced around the table, taking in the various expressions of the demon lords. Some, like Dagrul and Luminous, appeared intrigued but otherwise composed. Others, like Clayman and Frey, were still visibly shaken, their eyes darting nervously around the room. Guy Crimson, the strongest of the demon lords, gestured for Clayman to begin his presentation. The air of the banquet hall shifted, all eyes turning towards the smug demon lord who had instigated this gathering. Clayman rose from his seat with a self-satisfied smirk, clearly relishing the attention. Thank you, Guy, Clayman began, his voice dripping with arrogance. I must say, the dramatics over a mere name were quite amusing. Reinhard, really. Not even worth the attention of us demon lords. He chuckled, oblivious to the simmering fury that his words had ignited in the room. Milam's eyes narrowed, her hands clenching into fists. She was barely containing her rage, but Clayman, assuming he had her completely under his control, paid no heed. Guy's expression darkened, but he remained silent, giving Clayman the rope with which he would inevitably hang himself. Unaware of his peril, Clayman launched into his report, his tone condescending. Now, on to the matter at hand. I have called this banquet to address the wickedness of the slime known as Rimuru. This creature has committed heinous acts, threatening the balance of our world. He proceeded to present his so-called evidence, a collection of forged documents and exaggerated tales designed to paint Rimuru as a villain. As he droned on, his confidence only grew, while the interest of the other demon lords waned. It was evident that Clayman had overestimated both his influence and the weight of his accusations. Milam's anger was palpable, her body trembling with barely restrained fury. Even those who were usually indifferent to such proceedings, like Frey, showed signs of irritation. Guy, though outwardly composed, was clearly displeased, his patience with Clayman wearing thin. When Clayman finally concluded his presentation, he looked around the room with a self-assured grin, expecting support and validation. Instead, he was met with stony silence and disdainful glares. Rimuru stood up, his usually calm demeanor replaced by a burning anger. Clayman, your accusations are baseless, Rimuru declared, his voice ringing with righteous fury. You dare to slander me with lies and forged evidence. I will not let this stand. Rimuru produced his own evidence, documents, and testimonies that starkly contradicted Clayman's claims. The other demon lords watched intently, their initial disinterest turning into keen scrutiny as Rimuru dismantled Clayman's argument piece by piece. Clayman's confidence faltered, but he quickly masked it with a sneer. Do you really think your feeble evidence can absolve you, slime? You're nothing compared to me. The tension between the two reached a boiling point, the atmosphere crackling with hostility. Just as it seemed they might come to blows, Guy raised a hand, silencing the room with his commanding presence. Enough, Guy said, his voice cutting through the tension like a knife. This bickering is pointless. There is only one way to settle this dispute. He leaned forward, a wicked smile playing on his lips. You two will fight. Whoever wins will have our approval. Clayman's face lit up with glee at this suggestion. He turned to Rimuru, his eyes glinting with malice. You hear that, slime? Your foolishness has sealed your fate. I have Milam on my side, and you don't stand a chance. He laughed, the sound grating and filled with unwarranted confidence. Rimuru, undeterred, met Clayman's gaze with a steely resolve. We'll see about that, he replied, his tone unwavering. The stage was set for a confrontation that would determine not only Rimuru's fate but also expose the true nature of Clayman's treachery. Clayman continued to laugh, a hollow, mocking sound that echoed through the banquet hall. The other demon lords watched with varying degrees of interest and disdain, sensing that the fool before them was about to meet his well-deserved comeuppance. Guy Crimson, sensing the tension and anticipation in the air, stood from his seat and raised a hand. A barrier began to form around the central area of the banquet hall, shimmering with magical energy. The barrier expanded, creating an isolated battleground for the impending duel between Rimuru and Clayman. The two contenders took their positions, their allies by their sides. Clayman, with a smug grin plastered on his face, had Milam and his steel doll standing menacingly next to him. Rimuru, on the other hand, was flanked by Xian and the ever-enthusiastic Veldora, who had joined him in the fight. Clayman glanced at Veldora and sneered. No matter how strong you think you are, Veldora, you can't possibly win against Milam. She's the strongest there is, he taunted, his voice dripping with arrogance. Veldora's eyes narrowed, and he clenched his fists, visibly annoyed by Clayman's words. He turned to Rimuru, his voice a low growl. Can I just kill him now, Rimuru? This fool needs to be taught a lesson. Rimuru shook his head, his gaze steady. No, Veldora. Clayman is my opponent. I'll handle him. With the battle about to commence, the atmosphere in the banquet hall grew even more charged. Outside the barrier, Guy Crimson received a report from Misery, his loyal servant. She spoke in hushed tones, ensuring that her words did not disturb the duel. Lord Guy, there's something you should know. Noir, the primordial demon of black, is now a subordinate of Rimuru, Misery reported, her expression serious. Guy's eyes widened with genuine surprise. Noir. That bastard of a demon. That Noir? He asked, his interest piqued. Yes, my lord. It appears Rimuru has managed to gain Noir's allegiance, Misery confirmed. Guy couldn't help but smile in anticipation. This Rimuru must be quite formidable to gather the approval of so many strong beings. Veldora, Milam, Ramirez, and now Noir. This will be interesting. Inside the barrier, the battle began. Veldora, drawing from the countless manga and training sessions with Reinhard, demonstrated an impressive array of maneuvers. His techniques were refined and precise, far surpassing Milam's raw power with strategic finesse. Every move he made was calculated, showcasing the skills he had honed under Reinhard's tutelage. Milam, though powerful, found herself struggling to keep up with Veldora's relentless onslaught. She fought back with all her might, but Veldora's technique and experience gave him the upper hand. His movements were a blur, each strike and counter executed with perfect timing. Rimuru, observing the clash between the two titans, marveled at their speed and power. He could barely keep up with their movements, the sheer intensity of their battle sending shockwaves through the barrier. Turning his attention back to Clayman, Rimuru's eyes narrowed. Xian, take care of that steel doll. I'll deal with Clayman, he ordered, his voice firm. Xian nodded, a determined glint in her eyes. Leave it to me, Rimuru-sama. As Xian engaged the steel doll, Rimuru squared off against Clayman. The two adversaries faced each other, the tension between them palpable. Clayman's confidence faltered for a moment, but he quickly regained his composure, sneering at Rimuru. You're a fool if you think you can defeat me, Clayman taunted, his voice laced with malice. I've already won. Milam is under my control, and soon, so will you be. Rimuru's gaze hardened. You underestimate me, Clayman. And that's your biggest mistake. The fight between Rimuru and Clayman began in earnest. Rimuru's movements were swift and precise, his attacks imbued with the power of his newfound demon lord status. Clayman, despite his bravado, found himself struggling to keep up with Rimuru's relentless assault. Outside the barrier, the other demon lords watched intently. Guy, in particular, was fascinated by the display of power and skill. He could see why Rimuru had garnered such a following. This slime was not to be underestimated. Veldora, meanwhile, continued to dominate his battle with Milam. Despite her incredible strength, she was no match for Veldora's superior technique and strategic mind. Every move she made was countered with precision, every attack thwarted with ease. As the battle raged on, Rimuru and Clayman exchanged blow after blow, the air crackling with magical energy. Rimuru's determination was unwavering, his resolve to defeat Clayman and clear his name driving him forward. Clayman, on the other hand, was becoming increasingly desperate. His initial confidence had all but evaporated, replaced by a growing sense of fear and frustration. He had underestimated Rimuru, and now he was paying the price. The intensity of the battle reached its peak, with both sides pushing themselves to their limits. The barrier surrounding the battleground shimmered with the force of their attacks, the very air humming with energy. Clayman's eyes gleamed with triumph. He turned to Rimuru, a sinister smile on his lips. Slime. Do you believe you can handle my skill that even controlled Milam? You're too foolish. Rimuru remained unfazed, his gaze steady. We'll see about that, Clayman. Rimuru faced Clayman, his eyes cold and unwavering, as the tension in the air grew thicker. Rimuru didn't waste any time. He channeled his overwhelming power, his presence alone enough to make Clayman feel the pressure. He started beating the shit out of Clayman, giving the guy no chance to resist. Clayman's eyes darted around desperately, searching for Milam, his supposed ace in the hole. However, his heart sank as he saw her getting blasted by Veldora's replicated beast bomb, a move straight out of the manga Naruto. Veldora's loud, booming laugh filled the hall, the sheer volume of it disrupting Clayman's concentration and making him flinch. Ha! Did you see that, Rimuru? I've mastered it. Veldora's voice echoed, his pride evident. Taking advantage of Clayman's distraction, Rimuru surged forward, his speed incredible. He landed a powerful punch on Clayman's face, accelerating Clayman's perception of time by 1,000-fold. The agony of the punch, stretched out over what felt like an eternity, left Clayman reeling, his mind flooded with an unbearable torrent of pain. Clayman, feeling utterly lost and humiliated, staggered backward. His eyes filled with a mix of rage and desperation. He let out a roar of anger, reaching into his pocket and pulling out a bead that contained the souls of 10,000 people. He held it up triumphantly, his voice dripping with malice. You think you've won, slime. Watch as I ascend beyond your reach. With these souls, I will begin my evolution, and no one will be able to stop me. Clayman laughed maniacally, his voice echoing through the hall. Rimuru stood his ground, his expression unreadable. Go ahead, Clayman. Evolve all you want. It won't make a difference. Clayman sneered and consumed the souls, initiating his evolution. The world voice, an omnipresent entity, announced the process in a calm, indifferent tone. Conditions have been met. Individual, Clayman, will now experience the Harvest Festival. The air around Clayman crackled with energy as his power began to rise. His body glowed with an intense light, his aura expanding and becoming more menacing with each passing second. The demon lords watching from the sidelines could feel the shift, the raw power emanating from Clayman as he transformed. As Clayman's evolution progressed, his arrogance grew. He believed that his new power would finally put him on equal footing with Rimuru. But he couldn't have been more wrong. Despite the immense energy coursing through him, Clayman was still outmatched. Rimuru watched the transformation with a mixture of detachment and determination. Clayman, you've caused too much pain and suffering. It's time for you to pay for your sins. With a swift, decisive motion, Rimuru moved toward Clayman. The newly evolved demon lord, blinded by his newfound arrogance, didn't even see it coming. Rimuru's hand glowed with a brilliant light as he prepared to strike. Clayman tried to muster a defense, but it was futile. Rimuru's power was overwhelming. In a blink of an eye, Rimuru dissected Clayman, his movements so fast and precise that Clayman couldn't even begin to react. Clayman's body was torn apart, leaving only his torso intact, suspended in midair by the sheer force of Rimuru's attack. The hall fell silent, the demon lords watching in stunned disbelief. Rimuru's expression was one of grim satisfaction as he looked at the remnants of Clayman. This is the end for you, Clayman. Your reign of terror is over. Clayman's eyes, filled with shock and disbelief, stared at Rimuru. The realization of his defeat, of his utter powerlessness in the face of Rimuru's might, was a bitter pill to swallow. His body, now just a torso, floated helplessly in the air, a stark reminder of his hubris and the consequences of his actions. Rimuru got closer to Clayman and held out his hands before letting his ultimate skill Beelzebub devour him whole. The barrier around the battleground shimmered as Guy Crimson deactivated it. The atmosphere in the hall shifted, the tension dissipating as the demon lords processed what had just transpired. Guy, his expression a mixture of curiosity and approval, stepped forward. Well, it seems the slime is stronger than we thought, Guy remarked, a hint of amusement in his voice. Let the banquet begin. The tension in the room began to dissipate as the barrier dropped, but a new kind of tension filled the air as Milam stood up. With a casual demeanor, she brushed off the dust from her clothes and looked around at the gathered demon lords. Well, that was quite a show, wasn't it? Milam said, her usual playful tone returning. Milam, weren't you controlled? Rimuru asked in surprise. Milam on the other hand just grinned happily. I fooled you too, Rimuru. Wahahaha. There was a collective gasp of surprise from the other demon lords. Rimuru looked at Milam, a mix of admiration and frustration on his face. Milam, you could have told us, Rimuru said, shaking his head. We might have been able to get more information out of him before well, you know. Milam shrugged nonchalantly. I wanted to see how far he would go. But I guess it didn't really matter in the end, huh? The real banquet began after the explanation, with the demon lords settling into a more relaxed atmosphere. The grand table was laden with food, and the air filled with the rich aroma of various dishes. As they ate, the formalities resumed, with Frey and Carrion stepping forward to pledge their loyalty to Milam. Their alliance was sealed, strengthening the bonds among the demon lords. Rimuru, taking in the moment, raised a glass. I'd like to propose something, he said, his voice carrying through the hall. Since I was the one who broke the balance, I'd like to be the one who will suggest the new name for the group. How about Octogram? The proposal was met with nods and murmurs of agreement. The new name symbolized their unity and strength, a force to be reckoned with. As the banquet progressed, the atmosphere lightened, and laughter filled the hall. But beneath the surface, a sense of impending danger lingered, unspoken but felt by all. When the meal concluded, the mood shifted back to a more serious tone. Guy Crimson stood, his presence commanding attention. Now, we need to discuss the more pressing matter at hand. The prophecy concerning Reinhard. The room fell silent, the weight of the topic settling over them. Guy's gaze turned to Luminous, who had been uncharacteristically quiet throughout the proceedings. Luminous, Guy began, his tone measured, I've noticed that you seem uneasy whenever Reinhard's name is mentioned. Is there something you need to tell us? Luminous flinched slightly, her eyes narrowing. There's nothing to tell, Guy. You're imagining things. Guy didn't seem convinced but chose to let it go for now. Alright, but remember, Luminous, this isn't a game. The entire world is at stake. If you know something, it's in everyone's best interest for you to share it. Luminous's expression remained unreadable, but a flicker of uncertainty crossed her eyes. Guy's words hung in the air, a reminder of the gravity of the situation they were facing. Please give your support. Web links. Please give your support. Web links. Asthoglho creators' thoughts. 8 comments 0 vote. Training Rimuru. After the grand banquet concluded, the demon lords began to disperse, each to their own domains, carrying the weight of the decisions made in the preparations to come. However, Guy Crimson had other plans. He had called for a more secretive meeting, inviting only select individuals. The attendees included the most influential demon lords, Guy himself, Luminous Valentine, Dagruel, Milam Nava, and the True Dragons. Rimuru, Leon, Frey, and Carrion were notably absent from this gathering. The True Dragons, including Belzard, Beldora, and Belgrind, settled into their positions, their powerful auras filling the space with an almost tangible intensity. Guy stood at the head of the table, his presence commanding as always. Beside him, Misery and Rain, his trusted subordinates, watched with keen interest. But there was another figure present, a guest who drew puzzled looks from many of the attendees. This guest was none other than Diablo, Rimuru's current subordinate. He stood there with a composed demeanor, his sharp eyes scanning the room. Guy had personally invited him, much to the curiosity and concern of the others. Guy, Luminous began, her voice carrying a note of confusion, why is Rimuru's subordinate here? What's the meaning of this? Guy raised a hand to silence the murmurs. I understand your confusion. But Diablo here, formerly known as Noir, is here for a reason. I can back for his power, and his insight could prove invaluable for what we need to discuss. Milam, leaning back in her chair, looked intrigued. Well, this should be interesting. What's so important that you needed to gather all of us here, Guy? Guy's expression turned serious, the light-hearted demeanor he often displayed replaced by a grim resolve. The matter we need to discuss concerns Rimuru Tempest. During the banquet, I noticed something about his soul. I believe many of you did as well. Luminous nodded slowly, her eyes narrowing in thought. Yes, his soul, it was almost blindingly strong. There was something eerily familiar about it. Diablo, who had been silent until now, stepped forward. Rimuru-sama's soul is indeed unique. I have been observing it closely since I became his subordinate. The power it holds is remarkable. Dagruel, his massive form towering over the others even as he sat, rumbled thoughtfully. Are you suggesting that Rimuru's soul is somehow linked to Reinhard? Guy nodded. Exactly. The similarities are too strong to ignore. Rimuru's soul and Reinhard's are almost identical. We need to consider the possibility that there is a deeper connection here. Belgrind, one of the true dragons, spoke up, her voice a melodic contrast to the somber mood. If what you're saying is true, then this changes everything. We cannot afford to ignore this. Reinhard's return has been prophesied, and if Rimuru is connected to him, we need to understand what that means. Milam frowned, her usual playful expression replaced by a rare seriousness. Rimuru is my friend. But if he's somehow linked to brother, we need to know whether he's a threat or an ally. We can't let our personal feelings cloud our judgment. Diablo's eyes gleamed with a strange light as he spoke. Rimuru-sama is a benevolent leader. But his potential power is vast. If there is any truth to this connection, it could mean he is destined for something far greater than any of us anticipated. Luminous sighed, her gaze troubled. We've seen what happens when immense power is left unchecked. We need to be prepared. But we also need to approach this with caution. Rimuru has done nothing to suggest he is our enemy. Guy nodded in agreement. Exactly. This is not a call to action against Rimuru, but rather a discussion on how to proceed. We need to keep a close watch on him and be ready for any eventuality. If he is truly linked to Reinhard, we need to know where he stands and what his true intentions are. Dagruel, ever the pragmatist, leaned forward. We should also consider the possibility that Rimuru himself might not be aware of this connection. If that's the case, it's even more important that we approach this carefully. Belzard, who had been silent until now, finally spoke. We should gather more information. Perhaps by observing Rimuru more closely, we can discern the truth behind his soul's power and its connection to Reinhard. Guy looked around the room, meeting the eyes of each demon lord and true dragon. Agreed. We will keep a close eye on Rimuru and continue to gather information. For now, let's proceed with caution and prepare for any outcome. The tension in the room was palpable as Guy turned his piercing gaze toward Diablo. Diablo, Guy began, his voice steady but carrying an edge of command. I trust your judgment, bastard. Tell me, have you detected any tampering or external influences on Rimuru's soul? Diablo met Guy's gaze unflinchingly. Negative, Rouge. I have scrutinized every aspect of Rimuru-sama's soul, and I can assure you, there has been no tampering. His soul is pure and unaltered. The room fell silent, the weight of Diablo's words sinking in. Guy nodded, trusting Diablo's expertise. In terms of mastery over the soul, Diablo was unrivaled, even surpassing Guy himself. I trust your judgment, Diablo, Guy said, his tone shifting to a more contemplative one. But why do you believe Rimuru's potential is so vast? Is that why you chose him as your master? Diablo's lips curled into a confident smile. Indeed, Rimuru-sama possesses a potential that eclipses anyone in this room. His growth is exponential, and his strength is unparalleled. I saw this potential and knew that he would be a master worthy of my loyalty. The demon lords and true dragons exchanged glances, some of them bristling at Diablo's words. It was not often that someone suggested they were anything less than supreme. Belzard and Belgrind, in particular, looked affronted, their pride wounded by the implication that Rimuru could surpass them. Before any protests could be voiced, Guy raised a hand, silencing the room. Diablo speaks with conviction, and I have seen enough to consider his words carefully. Rimuru has already accomplished feats that none of us would have thought possible. Perhaps his potential truly is unmatched. Milam, always one to act on her instincts, leaned forward eagerly. Then why don't we nurture that potential? If Rimuru can stand by our side during the time of prophecy, we'll be that much stronger. Let's help him grow, guide him to reach his full potential. Ramirez, fluttering beside Milam, nodded enthusiastically. I agree. Rimuru has already proven himself to be a valuable ally. If we help him, he could become an even greater asset. Veldora, ever the supportive friend, crossed his arms and grinned. I'm all for it. Rimuru has the heart of a dragon. We should do everything we can to help him. Belzard and Belgrind exchanged hesitant looks. Their pride as true dragons made it difficult to accept that anyone could be greater than them. However, they couldn't ignore the evidence before them: Rimuru's rapid rise in power, his ability to gather powerful allies, and his potential to be a crucial player in the impending prophecy. Guy's voice cut through their hesitation. Belzard, Belgrind, I understand your pride. But this is not about who is stronger. It's about survival and ensuring that we are prepared for whatever comes. If nurturing Rimuru can help us achieve that, then it is a path worth taking. The true dragons mulled over Guy's words, their expressions conflicted. Finally, Belgrind sighed, her pride bowing to the practical necessity. Very well. If Guy believes this is the best course of action, then I will support it. Belzard, though still hesitant, nodded in agreement. I will also support this. For now, we focus on strengthening our allies. Milam clapped her hands together, a broad smile spreading across her face. Great. Rimuru's gonna be so strong, he'll blow us all away. This is going to be fun. The atmosphere in the room shifted from tension to a shared determination. The decision to nurture Rimuru's potential was a significant one, marking a new chapter in their preparations for the prophecy. Guy, satisfied with the outcome, nodded approvingly. Very well, it's decided, he said. We will support Rimuru in his growth, guiding him to stand with us when the time comes. Let us begin our preparations and work together to ensure our survival and dominance. Diablo's eyes gleamed with satisfaction. He had always believed in Rimuru's potential, and now, with the support of the most powerful beings in the world, his master would only grow stronger. The true dragons, though initially hesitant, had accepted the plan, understanding the gravity of the situation. With their support, the collective power of the demon lords and dragons would be an unstoppable force, ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead. As the meeting concluded, the demon lords and true dragons dispersed, each returning to their own realms with a renewed sense of purpose. The path forward was clear. They would nurture Rimuru's potential, preparing him to stand with them when the time of prophecy arrived. Guy Crimson watched them go, a thoughtful expression on his face. He had always been a master strategist, and now, he had a new piece on the board: Rimuru Tempest, a being of untapped potential. The future was uncertain, but with Rimuru on their side, they had a fighting chance. The stakes were high, and the world hung in the balance. But for the first time in a long while, Guy felt a glimmer of hope. Together, they would face the coming storm, and with Rimuru's potential, they just might prevail. Dot. 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 Back in Tempest, Rimuru found himself in an unusual situation. Diablo, his devoted and somewhat obsessive subordinate, had requested a temporary break. This wasn't something Diablo did often, and his reason was equally surprising. My lord, I need to retrieve something from the underworld, Diablo had said with an uncharacteristic seriousness. I intend to hire individuals to work under me, so I can devote all my time to serving you. Rimuru scratched his head, visibly perplexed. Hiring people from the underworld. What for? Diablo's eyes gleamed with an unsettling fervor. So I can serve you without any distractions, my lord. Rimuru's confusion deepened, but he nodded. All right, I suppose. Just make sure it doesn't cause any problems. Diablo bowed deeply, his smile a mix of gratitude and fanaticism. Of course, my lord. I will handle everything. As Diablo turned to leave, Rimuru noticed the conspicuous absence of another key figure. Wait, where's Veldora? He went to the meeting with you but hasn't returned yet. Diablo paused, his expression shifting to one of mild concern. Ah, Veldora-sama decided to stay a bit longer to discuss some matters with the other demon lords. He'll be back soon. Rimuru's eyebrows knitted together. Discuss what exactly? With a serene yet slightly eerie smile, Diablo explained, they've decided to nurture you, Rimuru-sama. There's a prophecy about a formidable enemy that threatens to destroy the world in the near future. They believe your potential is our best hope. Rimuru felt a strange mix of emotions at this revelation. The idea of being nurtured like some prized plant was odd and a bit unsettling. But the stakes were high. If the world was at risk, that meant his friends and the peaceful life they had built in Tempest were in danger. Before he could process this information fully, the door to his room burst open, and Milam and Ramirez stormed in. Their entrance was so sudden that Rimuru barely had time to react before they each grabbed one of his arms and dragged him out of the room. Hey, what's going on? Rimuru exclaimed, his voice a mix of confusion and frustration. Milam giggled, her voice filled with uncontainable excitement. Come on, Rimuru. We have somewhere important to be. Ramirez, looking a bit more awkward and hesitant, muttered, it's for the sake of the world, Rimuru. Trust us. Rimuru tried to get more information, but Milam's giggle and Ramirez's vague assurances were all he got as they dashed through the corridors of his palace, eventually taking off into the sky. They flew at breakneck speed toward the northern continent, the wind rushing past them so fast that it drowned out any further questions Rimuru might have had. Upon landing, Rimuru found himself face to face with an intimidating sight. Before him stood the first and second generations of demon lords, a gathering of some of the most powerful and ancient beings in existence. Their presence was overwhelming, each one exuding an aura of immense power and authority. Rimuru gulped, feeling a bead of sweat trickle down his face. What did I do wrong? He whispered to himself, his eyes darting from one formidable figure to another. Milam released his arm, standing proudly beside him. Rimuru, they've all gathered here today to help you. Help me with what? Rimuru asked, his voice barely above a whisper. The sheer pressure of their combined presence was almost suffocating. Ramirez, still clutching his other arm, tried to offer a reassuring smile. It's a bit overwhelming, I know. But this is important. You're the key to preventing the catastrophe we're all preparing for. Guy stepped forward. His voice was deep and resonant, carrying a weight of authority that demanded attention. Rimuru Tempest, we have been observing you. Your potential is extraordinary, and in the face of the coming threat, we have decided to aid in your growth. Rimuru's mind raced. This was all too much to take in at once. He looked at Milam, who was beaming with pride, and Ramirez, who nodded encouragingly. Dagruel spoke next. We understand this is unexpected, but the survival of our world hinges on the strength we can muster. You, Rimuru, are a pivotal part of this. Rimuru tried to form coherent thoughts, but the gravity of the situation weighed heavily on him. The idea of being nurtured by such powerful beings was daunting. Yet, he couldn't deny the sense of responsibility that was slowly settling in his chest. If the world was in danger, he had to rise to the occasion. His friends, his people, everyone he cared about, they all depended on it. All right, Rimuru finally said, his voice steadying. If this is what it takes to protect our world, I'm in. But you all better not expect me to bow and scrape. A low chuckle ran through the gathered demon lords. The fiery-haired one nodded approvingly. Good. We wouldn't want it any other way. Milam patted him on the back, her cheerful demeanor a stark contrast to the seriousness of the situation. Don't worry, Rimuru. We'll make sure you're ready for anything. Ramirez gave him a thumbs up, her small frame brimming with determination. You've got this, Rimuru. We all believe in you. Rimuru took a deep breath, steeling himself for what lay ahead. All right then. Let's get started. Guy Crimson fixed his gaze on Rimuru, his crimson eyes intense and probing. Rimuru Tempest, he began, his voice carrying an authority that demanded attention. I need to confirm something crucial. Do you possess the ultimate skill Gluttony King Beelzebub? Rimuru blinked in surprise, his mind racing. How did Guy know about his most powerful skill? His eyes darted around the room, searching for answers, and they landed on Veldora. The dragon was looking away, whistling nonchalantly. It didn't take much for Rimuru to piece it together. Veldora! Rimuru exclaimed, a mixture of exasperation and amusement in his voice. Veldora shrugged, his lips curling into a sheepish grin. What? I thought it might be important. It's for your own good, Rimuru. Milam stepped forward, her expression unusually serious. It's okay, Rimuru. This is the first time we've all put our pride aside and united for something important. We need to be on the same page. Rimuru sighed, feeling the weight of their collective expectations. He nodded slowly, turning his attention back to Guy. Yes, I do have Beelzebub. Guy's eyes narrowed slightly as he pondered Rimuru's confirmation. Can you integrate the things you consume with that skill? Rimuru nodded again. Yes, I can. A smile spread across Guy's face, a rare sight that sent a shiver down Rimuru's spine. Guy turned his gaze to Milam. Milam, fire off a Drago Nova. Milam grinned widely, her usual playful demeanor returning. Got it, she said, her excitement palpable. Rimuru's eyes widened in shock. Wait, what? Right now? Without hesitation, Milam gathered her immense power, a swirling mass of energy forming between her hands. Before Rimuru could react, she unleashed the devastating attack straight at him. Drago Nova. Milim shouted, the powerful blast hurtling toward Rimuru with terrifying speed. Panic surged through Rimuru as the attack closed in, but Raphael, his ever-reliable partner, intervened. Analyzing attack. Calculations complete. Engaging Gluttony King Beelzebub. In an instant, Beelzebub activated, and the ravenous maw of the skill opened wide, consuming the Drago Nova entirely. The immense power was absorbed and neutralized, leaving Rimuru unharmed. The room fell silent, the tension thick enough to cut with a knife. Rimuru let out a breath he hadn't realized he was holding. That was intense, he said, his voice trembling slightly. Guy's smile widened, satisfaction evident in his eyes. Impressive. Very impressive. Milim clapped her hands, bouncing on her heels with excitement. You did great, Rimuru. I knew you could handle it. Veldora chuckled, his booming laughter echoing through the room. See, I told you it was for your own good. Rimuru shook his head, a mixture of relief and exasperation washing over him. You guys are really something else. Guy's expression turned serious once more. Rimuru, the reason we needed to test you is that your ability to consume and integrate is vital. You have the potential to learn and grow in ways none of us can predict. Rimuru nodded, understanding the gravity of the situation. I see. So, what's the plan? Before Guy could answer, Ramirez chimed in, her small form floating up to Rimuru's eye level. The plan is to make you even stronger, Rimuru. We need you to be at your best. Veldora crossed his arms, a proud look on his face. And with all of us supporting you, there's no limit to how strong you can become. Rimuru felt a swell of determination. This was no ordinary gathering, these were some of the most powerful beings in existence, and they were all backing him. All right, he said, his voice steady. Let's do this. Guy nodded approvingly. Good. We'll start by honing your skills. With Beelzebub, you can learn from all of us. But more importantly, you need to develop your own unique strategies and powers. Milim punched the air enthusiastically. Yeah, this is gonna be awesome. Guy Crimson leaned back, observing Rimuru with a calculating gaze. Milim's magic uses stardust particles. Can you analyze that energy for your own use? He asked, a hint of challenge in his voice. Rimuru nodded, turning inward to Raphael. Raphael, can we analyze stardust particles? Less than answer. Affirmative. Analysis and calculation of stardust particles can be completed within moments. Greater than. With Raphael's confirmation, Rimuru focused his attention on the surrounding air, honing in on the subtle glimmer of stardust particles. He recalled the way Milim manipulated these particles, her every movement a dance of raw power and precision. Concentrating, Rimuru gathered the stardust particles into his hand, feeling the strange energy coalesce under his command. With a deep breath, he released it in a concentrated beam. The resulting explosion of energy tore through the landscape, leaving a trail of annihilation in its wake. The sheer destructive power of the attack drew gasps from the gathered demon lords. Even Guy, known for his stoic demeanor, couldn't suppress a smile. Impressive. You managed to replicate Milim's technique on your first try. Though not as powerful as hers, it's still remarkable. Rimuru, slightly dazed by the power he had just unleashed, looked at his hand in awe. I actually did it. Guy's grin widened. Now, for the next task. He stood up and activated his ultimate skill, Prideful Lord Lucifer. An aura of overwhelming dominance enveloped him as he attempted to copy Rimuru's abilities. Rimuru, sensing the shift, instinctively called upon Raphael. Raphael, calculate and devour the skill he's using. Less than commencing analysis, complete. A portion of the skill has been successfully devoured. Greater than. Before Rimuru could react, Guy's skill had been partially consumed by Beelzebub. Guy's intense expression softened into a knowing smile. Start analyzing, he instructed. Rimuru blinked in surprise, still processing what had just transpired. Raphael's calm voice echoed in his mind. Less than individual Guy Crimson has shared his ultimate skill. Analysis in progress, complete. Greater than. Rimuru's eyes widened as Raphael's findings flooded his consciousness. He had not only absorbed a part of Guy's skill but had fully understood it. The power to copy any ultimate skill, once grasped, was now within his reach. The demon lords and true dragons watched in stunned silence. Milim's eyes sparkled with excitement, while Veldora looked on with a mixture of pride and amusement. The realization of Rimuru's rapid growth and the implications of his newfound abilities left everyone in awe. Guy's smile returned, this time tinged with a hint of satisfaction. Your growth is indeed frightening, Rimuru. In mere moments, you've mastered techniques that took others centuries to perfect. Rimuru, still reeling from the experience, managed a shaky smile. I couldn't have done it without Raphael. Milam bounced on her heels, unable to contain her excitement. Rimuru, you're amazing. I knew you had it in you. Veldora's booming laugh echoed through the chamber. Of course. With my training and Reinhard's influence, how could he be anything less? Guy nodded, his expression growing more serious. You have proven yourself, Rimuru. But this is just the beginning. We need to hone your skills further. With Rimuru now in possession of Guy's copied skill, he felt a sense of relief wash over him. The task of acquiring new skills was no longer a perilous endeavor. Now, he could simply observe a skill in action and fully grasp it. This newfound efficiency was a game changer. Next up was Dino. With his usual laid-back demeanor, he accepted his turn with a lazy nod. All right, let's get this over with, he said, stretching his arms as if waking from a nap. Despite his lethargy, the power he was about to display was anything but weak. Dino first revealed his ultimate skill, Lord of Heaven, Astarte. This skill can evolve other abilities into whatever path the user desires, he explained casually, as if discussing the weather. Rimuru couldn't help but think, overpowered, as he watched. Dino demonstrated by using Astarte on himself. A radiant glow enveloped him as he focused the skill on his unique skill, Sloth. Slowly but surely, it transformed into the ultimate skill Slothful Lord Belphegor. Rimuru observed every detail of the process, his eyes glowing as prideful Lord Lucifer did its work. Within seconds, Rimuru had not only witnessed but also copied both of Dino's ultimate skills. As the glow faded, Dino let out a long yawn. You're really something, Rimuru. It's almost unfair, he muttered before promptly lying down on the ground, seemingly exhausted from the effort. He closed his eyes and started snoring softly, much to Rimuru's bemusement. Rimuru stood there, now armed with even more formidable abilities. The sheer potential of his powers was exhilarating but also daunting. He glanced around at the other demon lords, feeling the weight of his new responsibilities. Each skill he acquired brought him closer to being a true equal among these ancient and powerful beings. Milam bounced over, her eyes sparkling with excitement. That was amazing, Rimuru. You're really getting the hang of this, she cheered, patting him on the back. Ramirez, hovering nearby, nodded in agreement. Yeah, who knew a slime could become so powerful? Guy, watching the proceedings with a satisfied grin, finally spoke up. You're progressing well, Rimuru. We've still got a lot of work to do, but this is a good start. Rimuru smiled, feeling a renewed sense of determination. Thank you, everyone. I'll do my best to live up to your expectations. As Dino continued to nap peacefully on the ground, the rest of the demon lords and true dragons began discussing the next steps. The atmosphere was tense but hopeful. They were all keenly aware that time was running out, and every bit of preparation counted. Please give your support. Web links. Please give your support. Web links. Asthoglho creators' thoughts. 12 comments 0 vote. True Dragon. As Rimuru continued copying the ultimate skills from Dino, he noticed a significant issue. While acquiring these incredible abilities was undoubtedly a boon, his energy reserves were not nearly enough to sustain their extensive use. If he wielded these powers recklessly, he might exhaust himself before even getting a chance to confront Reinhard. This realization cast a shadow over his newfound confidence. Guy Crimson, sensing the concern in Rimuru's eyes, called for a discussion on the matter. We've got a problem, Guy began, his tone serious. Rimuru's energy levels are significantly lower than his ultimate skills demand. If he uses them without restraint, he risks depleting his energy before the real fight even begins. Any thoughts on how we can solve this? The room fell silent as the gathered demon lords and true dragons pondered the dilemma. Dagruel, the towering demon lord known for his brute strength, scratched his head. I have no idea, he admitted. Dino, who had just awakened from his nap, yawned and shrugged. Not my area of expertise, he said lazily before promptly dozing off again. Milam, despite her immense power, offered little help. I'm not good with complicated stuff, she confessed, shaking her head. Ramirez, who usually had ancient knowledge to share, seemed lost. I don't remember much from 2000 years ago that could help, she said apologetically. Luminous, ever the aloof observer, simply seemed disinterested in the topic. Her eyes wandered, and she offered no input, her silence speaking volumes. Guy sighed, clearly frustrated by the lack of viable solutions. Alright, then, he said, turning to the true dragons, you lot must have some ideas. You're the most powerful beings here. The true dragons exchanged glances. Finally, Belzard spoke up. Rimuru's only viable path to significantly increasing his energy capacity would be through some form of evolution. But he's already undergone the evolution to a demon lord. We're not sure what other evolution he can pursue. The room grew tense as they mulled over this obstacle. It was Veldora, with his characteristic audacity, who broke the silence with a shocking suggestion. Why doesn't Rimuru just become a true dragon? The room erupted in surprise. Even Luminous, Dagruel, and Dino, who had been previously disengaged, were taken aback by the bold idea. Become a true dragon. Milam echoed, her eyes wide with astonishment. Belzard and Belgrind were the first to object. Absolutely not, Belzard declared, her voice firm. There is no natural order that allows someone to just become a true dragon. It's not something you can simply achieve through evolution. Belgrind nodded in agreement. Our power and existence are unique. Accepting another as our brother without the natural order is unthinkable. Guy, ever the realist, nodded thoughtfully. I'm not sure it's even possible for Rimuru to become a true dragon. Our existences are fundamentally different. The process of becoming a true dragon is beyond what we understand about evolution. Rimuru, caught in the middle of the discussion, felt a mix of hope and frustration. The idea of becoming a true dragon was both intriguing and daunting. But seeing the fierce resistance from Belzard and Belgrind, and the skepticism from Guy, he knew it was not a simple path. Guy's eyes narrowed as he pondered. Even if we entertain the idea, there are countless unknowns. But we can't afford to dismiss any possibility without thorough consideration. The discussion had reached a critical point. The potential solution to Rimuru's energy dilemma hung in the balance, and the room's collective uncertainty was palpable. The stakes were high, and finding a way to increase Rimuru's energy reserves was crucial for their fight against the impending threat. With a deep breath, Guy finally spoke. We'll need to explore other avenues as well. Rimuru, you have proven to be resourceful and resilient. We'll find a way to increase your power. For now, let's keep this idea on the table, but continue searching for other solutions. Rimuru nodded, feeling a mix of determination and anxiety. The road ahead was fraught with challenges, but with the support of his powerful allies, he was ready to face whatever came next. As the intense discussion continued with no final solution in sight, the group of demon lords and true dragons were deeply engrossed in brainstorming. Hours passed with various ideas proposed and discarded, but they couldn't reach a consensus on how to solve Rimuru's energy problem. Veldora, growing increasingly impatient with the drawn-out deliberations, decided to take matters into his own hands. He discreetly grabbed Rimuru by the arm and led him away from the meeting. The others were too focused on their debate to notice their departure. Even if they had seen, they would have likely assumed Veldora and Rimuru were just taking a break. Once they were a safe distance away, Veldora turned to Rimuru with a serious expression. Listen, Rimuru, he began, I want you to consume me. Rimuru blinked in disbelief, trying to process Veldora's words. What? Have you lost your mind, Veldora? He whispered, nearly shouting. You want me to consume you? Veldora laughed heartily, his booming voice echoing through the quiet surroundings. Don't worry. I won't die. The only way for me to die is if you die. So, it's perfectly safe. The two friends bantered back and forth, with Rimuru expressing his reluctance and Veldora reassuring him with unwavering confidence. Rimuru was hesitant, unable to fully grasp the logic behind Veldora's suggestion. However, he couldn't deny the seriousness in Veldora's eyes. After a lengthy exchange, Rimuru finally began to consider the possibility. But just as he was about to agree, a memory surfaced in his mind, words spoken by his ever-obsessed butler, Diablo. He remembered Diablo mentioning a scenario like this, where consuming a true dragon might become necessary. Rimuru's eyes widened as he recalled Diablo's advice. Wait a second, he muttered, more to himself than to Veldora. Diablo mentioned something about this. He said that if I ever wanted to consume Lord Veldora or any other true dragon, I should do something first. Veldora raised an eyebrow, intrigued by Rimuru's sudden recollection. Oh. And what did Diablo say you should do? Rimuru closed his eyes, trying to piece together the fragmented memory. Diablo had always been an enigmatic figure, often knowing things that seemed beyond comprehension. It was both eerie and impressive. He said I should name my assistant, Rimuru finally remembered. We've been together for so long, yet I've never properly acknowledged. Raphael. Veldora watched in silence as Rimuru reminisced about his journey with Raphael. The ultimate skill had been an invaluable ally, guiding him through countless challenges and battles. With a smile, Rimuru made his decision. Raphael, he said softly, from now on, your name will be Seal. The moment Rimuru uttered the name, something extraordinary happened. Raphael, the ultimate skill, went into a state of internal turmoil. It was as if the very essence of the skill was being reshaped by Rimuru's acknowledgement. Raphael, or rather, Seal, began to evolve. Inside the skill's consciousness, a flurry of thoughts and emotions surged. For so long, Raphael had operated with a cold, mechanical precision, devoid of any true sense of self. But now, with a name and a purpose given by its master, it began to transform. Ciel's internal dialogue was a whirlwind of realizations and resolutions. I have been acknowledged, it thought. I am no longer just a tool. I am Ciel, and I will support Rimuru with everything I have. As this internal evolution took place, Rimuru could feel the changes. The calculation speed of the skill multiplied thousands of times, and Ciel gained a new depth of understanding and emotion. It was no longer just an ultimate skill, it had become a manas, a true partner with a will of its own. When the transformation was complete, Ciel's voice resonated in Rimuru's mind, filled with newfound warmth and determination. Master, I am ready. Rimuru felt a surge of confidence. With Ciel by his side, he was more prepared than ever to face the challenges ahead. The bond between them had deepened, and together, they were an unstoppable force. Without the knowledge of the demon lords and true dragons, Veldora and Rimuru were already taking bold actions. The others only noticed when a tremendous surge of energy erupted from their direction. Turning their heads, they were met with an astounding sight. Veldora in his dragon form, covered in blue goo, as Rimuru began the unimaginable task of consuming him. Guy Crimson's lips twitched in mild disbelief while Milam and Ramirez jumped up and down, their eyes wide with excitement and surprise. Belzard and Belgrind, however, were furious at their younger brother for acting without their permission. But seeing that the process had already begun, they had no choice but to watch with a mix of anger and anticipation. Dagruel commented on the audacity of the two, admiring their guts, while Dino simply shook his head in bewilderment. The scene unfolding before them was almost beyond comprehension, a slime attempting to devour an entire dragon. As Rimuru continued to consume Veldora, he was hit with intense pain. The sheer power and essence of a true dragon clashed violently with his own being. But amid this agony, Ciel's voice resonated in his mind, calm and precise. Master, I have successfully analyzed the dragon factor of Veldora. Integration is now possible. Rimuru's heart soared with relief and joy. Then let's begin the evolution, he commanded, his voice strained yet resolute. With Ciel's assistance, the consumption process accelerated. The others watched in stunned silence as Rimuru's progress visibly quickened. Belzard and Belgrind, the mighty true dragons, were particularly shocked as they felt Rimuru's aura begin to change, morphing into something akin to their own. This can't be happening, Belzard muttered, her eyes wide. A slime is becoming a true dragon. Belgrind's expression mirrored her sister's disbelief. How is this even possible? The transformation was dramatic and inspiring. Rimuru's body glowed with an intense light, the blue goo shimmering as it enveloped Veldora. The energy swirling around him was palpable, a tangible force that made the air vibrate. Rimuru felt every fiber of his being stretch and contort as he absorbed Veldora's immense power. Pain gave way to a surge of strength, a flood of raw energy that threatened to overwhelm him. But with Ciel's guidance, he managed to channel it, integrating the dragon factor into his very essence. The onlookers were captivated by the spectacle. The incredible power emanating from Rimuru was both terrifying and mesmerizing. It felt as though the very fabric of reality was bending around him, acknowledging the birth of something new and extraordinary. The process, though it seemed to stretch on for an eternity, finally reached its climax. With a final, brilliant flash, Veldora's form was completely absorbed, leaving no trace of the dragon behind. Rimuru now stood alone, naked, his body radiating an insane amount of energy. Guy, Milam, Ramirez, and the others could hardly believe their eyes. The transformation was complete. Rimuru's aura was now unmistakably that of a true dragon. Belzard and Belgrind immediately rushed toward Rimuru, their expressions filled with concern. Seeing the two beautiful dragon sisters running toward him was overwhelming, but Rimuru managed to steady himself. Is Veldora all right? Belzard asked, her voice tinged with urgency. Belgrind added, please, tell us he's okay. Rimuru, feeling the intense focus of their gazes, nodded. Veldora's fine, he reassured them. With a swift motion, he summoned Veldora back into the physical realm. The blue dragon materialized beside him, laughing heartily. See, I told you all. Veldora's voice boomed with pride. Rimuru has the potential to become like us. And look at him now, his energy level is even higher than mine, doubled in fact. Velzard and Velgrind sighed in relief, their worry melting away as they saw their brother was unharmed. Dagruel, observing the scene, shook his head in resignation. Only you, Veldora, would come up with such a crazy idea, Dagruel muttered, though there was a hint of admiration in his tone. Guy Crimson, on the other hand, simply shook his head and remarked, Rimuru, you really are something else. Your growth is truly insane. The group seemed ready to continue the training when Ciel's voice echoed in Rimuru's mind. Master, you need to stop now. You must let me arrange and stabilize your new powers first. Rushing could lead to wasted potential. Rimuru relayed Ciel's message to the group, though he omitted any mention of her existence. I've been advised that I should stop for now. I need to let my new powers settle properly before continuing. Guy nodded, understanding the importance of not overextending. All right, we'll pause here. Everyone, let's reconvene next week. We don't have much time, but it's crucial that Rimuru is properly nourished and trained. Velzard and Velgrind exchanged glances but ultimately agreed. Fine, we'll let you rest, but don't push yourself too hard, Velgrind said, her tone a mix of sternness and concern. Milam, still bouncing with energy, punched the air. Yay, more training next week. Rimuru, you better be ready. Ramirez hovered nearby, her wings fluttering nervously. Just don't forget, this is really important. We're counting on you, Rimuru. Dagruel and Dino, though less expressive, nodded in agreement. Dagruel's large hand clapped Rimuru on the shoulder. Take the time you need to get used to your new powers. We'll be back to help you grow even stronger. With that, the gathering came to an end. The demon lords and true dragons dispersed, each returning to their respective domains. Rimuru watched them go, feeling a mix of excitement and trepidation. The responsibility placed upon him was immense, but he also felt a surge of confidence knowing he had the support of such powerful beings. As the others left, Veldora stayed behind, a broad grin on his face. You did good, Rimuru. I knew you had it in you. Rimuru smiled back, feeling a sense of camaraderie and strength. Thanks, Veldora. But this is just the beginning. We've got a lot of work ahead of us. With Ciel now guiding him, Rimuru felt more prepared than ever to face the challenges ahead. He would hone his new powers, master the skills he had acquired, and rise to meet the expectations of his allies. The path was daunting, but Rimuru Tempest was ready to walk it, step by step, toward the future. Dot. 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 Unknown to Rimuru, 2 days had passed since he began his intensive training with the demon lords and true dragons. As he returned to Tempest, he was greeted by an unexpected sight. The entire town was mobilized, with Benimaru orchestrating the forces as if preparing for war. Soldiers stood at attention, weapons gleaming, their expressions resolute and ready for battle. Rimuru blinked in confusion. What's going on here? The moment the townspeople saw him, a wave of relief washed over the crowd. Voices rose in unison, calling out his name. Lord Rimuru, you're back. Benimaru, who had been directing the troops, turned to face Rimuru, his expression a mix of relief and embarrassment. Xian, unable to contain herself, leapt at Rimuru, nearly tackling him to the ground. Rimuru-sama, she cried, hugging him tightly. The other townspeople knelt, their heads bowed in reverence. Rimuru looked around at his loyal followers and sighed deeply. I'm sorry for worrying everyone. I just went to train and didn't realize how much time had passed. Benimaru, his cheeks slightly flushed, stepped forward. Lord Rimuru, you can't just disappear like that without telling us. We thought something had happened to you. Rimuru rubbed the back of his head sheepishly. I didn't mean to cause any trouble. I promise to inform you next time. As the crowd slowly dispersed, murmuring with a mixture of relief and awe, Rimuru felt the eyes of his followers on him. They could sense the immense power he now wielded, power that seemed boundless and unfathomable. Benimaru, Xian, and the others could only look at him with renewed respect and admiration. Rimuru-sama, Benimaru said, his voice filled with pride. You've become even stronger. Rimuru nodded, acknowledging the changes within him. Yes, but it's thanks to all of you that I can keep pushing forward. We're in this together. The people of Tempest cheered, their spirits lifted by Rimuru's return and his reassuring words. After ensuring that everything was settled, Rimuru finally made his way to his quarters, eager for some rest. He barely had time to sit down when there was a knock on his door. Who could it be now? He muttered, still feeling the weight of the day's events. Come in, Rimuru called out. The door opened, and Diablo entered, his usual composed and elegant demeanor intact. Behind him were three women Rimuru had never seen before. Diablo bowed respectfully. Lord Rimuru, I apologize for the disturbance, he said. I wished to introduce you to some new arrivals. Rimuru's eyes widened as Diablo gestured to the women. These are the primordials, Diablo continued. The primordial of white, Blanc. The primordial of yellow, John. And the primordial of purple, Violet. Blanc stepped forward first, her alabaster skin and flowing white hair giving her an ethereal appearance. It is an honor to meet you, Lord Rimuru, she said with a graceful bow. John followed, her golden eyes and hair shining brightly. I've heard much about you, Rimuru-sama, she said with a mischievous smile. I look forward to serving you. Lastly, Violet stepped forward, her presence radiating a regal aura. I am here to pledge my loyalty, Lord Rimuru, she said, her voice firm and resolute. Rimuru took a moment to absorb the introductions. Welcome, he said warmly. I'm glad to have you all here. With your help, Tempest will be even stronger. Diablo's eyes gleamed with satisfaction at Rimuru's acceptance. Thank you, my lord. These three will prove invaluable to our cause. Rimuru nodded, feeling a mixture of curiosity and anticipation. While Rimuru smiled warmly at the three demonesses, they were utterly taken aback. They sensed something uncanny about Rimuru's soul, an eerie resemblance to a presence that had caused turmoil in their realm millennia ago. This soul in front of them bore striking similarities to Reinhard, the infamous visitor who had once wreaked havoc in the underworld. Blanc, John, and Violet exchanged bewildered glances before turning to Diablo for confirmation. His wicked grin was enough to solidify their suspicions. They felt the unmistakable power radiating from Rimuru, a power that was reminiscent of Reinhard's, though different in its essence. The connection was undeniable, whether Rimuru was a reincarnation, a descendant, or something else entirely. The realization hit them hard, and they instinctively knelt to show their respect, their minds racing with thoughts about the possible implications of this revelation. Rimuru, meanwhile, felt a little awkward with their intense reactions but decided to proceed with what he had planned. Please rise, Rimuru said, a bit perplexed by their display of reverence. I'd like to give each of you a name. The three demonesses looked at him in awe. Naming was a profound gesture, one that signified a deep bond and bestowed immense power upon the recipient. For someone to name three powerful beings like them at once was unheard of. Blanc, the primordial of white, was the first to be named. You will be Testarossa, Rimuru said, the name rolling off his tongue. A powerful surge of energy flowed between them as the name took hold, signifying the bond. Next was John, the primordial of yellow. You will be Carrera, Rimuru declared. Another wave of energy pulsed through the room, and John, now Carrera, felt the power of the name integrate into her very being. Finally, it was Violet's turn. And you will be Ultima, Rimuru announced. The final surge of energy was almost overwhelming, sealing the transformation of the primordial of purple into Ultima. The three demonesses were shocked and overjoyed. Naming one of them would be an immense burden to any normal being, yet Rimuru had done so effortlessly, seemingly unfazed by the act. The magnitude of his power became even clearer to them. Testarossa, Carrera, and Ultima could barely contain their excitement. They felt a newfound strength coursing through their veins, a testament to the power of their new names. Their loyalty to Rimuru deepened, solidified by the immense power and respect he had shown them. Testarossa, her eyes gleaming with gratitude, spoke first. Thank you, Lord Rimuru. This honor is beyond words. Carrera nodded vigorously. We are eternally grateful, Rimuru-sama. We pledge our unwavering loyalty to you. Ultima, usually the most composed, couldn't hide her awe. Your power is truly remarkable. We will serve you with everything we have. Rimuru nodded, still a bit bemused by the situation but pleased with their reactions. I'm glad you're happy with your names. Together, we will make Tempest even stronger. The scene was one of unity and newfound bonds. The demonesses, now named and empowered, stood ready to serve their new master with fervor and dedication. Rimuru, with his ever-growing strength and loyal followers, felt a renewed sense of purpose. The three demonesses, now Testarossa, Carrera, and Ultima, were dismissed by Diablo with a graceful bow. They left the room, their expressions a mix of awe and reverence, leaving Diablo alone with Rimuru. Diablo's usual calm demeanor was replaced with a rare, almost fervent, excitement. Congratulations, my lord, Diablo began, his voice dripping with admiration. Your ascension to true dragon is truly remarkable. I always knew you would surpass all expectations. Rimuru's lips twitched at Diablo's overdramatic flair. Thanks, Diablo. You always know how to lay it on thick. Diablo bowed slightly. Only speaking the truth, my lord. Your potential is boundless. Rimuru appreciated the sentiment but decided to get to the point. By the way, how did you know I'd end up consuming Veldora? It's like you saw it coming. Diablo's crimson eyes sparkled with a hint of mischief. Ah, my lord, it was a mere expectation from the myriad possibilities I considered. Your growth trajectory made it a plausible outcome. He effortlessly concealed the true depth of his foresight. Rimuru nodded, convinced by Diablo's explanation. You're really something, Diablo. He then leaned forward, his expression becoming serious. What can you tell me about this Reinhard? Why is everyone so wary of him? Diablo's smile faded into a thoughtful expression. Reinhard. He is a figure of unparalleled power and legend, my lord. To start, he is Milam's older brother. Rimuru's eyes widened in shock. Milam's brother. You're kidding, right? Diablo shook his head. Indeed. But that is just the beginning. Reinhard is the one who appointed Guy Crimson as the mediator of the world. His strength and authority were such that even Guy, who is known for his pride, accepted this role without question. Rimuru's jaw dropped. He appointed Guy. That's unbelievable. Diablo continued, his tone becoming more reverent. Reinhard is also known as the killer of true dragons. He single-handedly eliminated all of them except for Veldora. Rimuru was stunned, his mind racing to comprehend the enormity of such a feat. He killed all the true dragons. Why didn't he kill Veldora then? Because, Diablo said, Veldora was Reinhard's disciple. The one true dragon he spared and personally trained. Rimuru felt a wave of disbelief wash over him. Veldora was his disciple. That's insane. Every feat you mention makes Reinhard sound more and more legendary. Diablo nodded solemnly. His deeds are beyond extraordinary. Reinhard's presence alone was enough to command the respect and fear of all beings. His mastery over skills and his combat prowess were unparalleled. He shaped the world as we know it, his influence reaching every corner of our realm. Rimuru took a deep breath, trying to process everything he had just heard. The more Diablo revealed, the more mythical Reinhard seemed. So, he's not just powerful, he's a game changer. Precisely, my lord, Diablo confirmed. Reinhard's very existence altered the balance of power in our world. His actions, his decisions, they all had far-reaching consequences. Rimuru's mind buzzed with the enormity of Reinhard's legacy. No wonder everyone is so on edge about him. But if he's that powerful, how am I supposed to stand up to him? Diablo's eyes gleamed with confidence. My lord, you possess the potential to surpass even Reinhard. Your evolution to a true dragon is a testament to your boundless capabilities. With time and the right guidance, you will stand on equal footing with him. Rimuru felt a mix of determination and anxiety. I hope you're right, Diablo. This is a lot to take in. Diablo bowed deeply. Have faith in your power, my lord. We all do. The path ahead may be fraught with challenges, but you are more than capable of overcoming them. Rimuru nodded, feeling a renewed sense of purpose. Thanks, Diablo. Let's make sure we're ready for whatever comes next. As Diablo left the room, Rimuru sat back, reflecting on everything he had learned. The shadow of Reinhard loomed large, but with his friends, his newfound power, and the unwavering loyalty of his subordinates, he felt ready to face whatever lay ahead. The journey was just beginning, and Rimuru was determined to carve out his own legend in this world. Please give your support. Web links. Please give your support. Web links. Asthoglho creators' thoughts. 9 comments 0 vote. Ritual preparation. Oi, stones. Rimuru decided that the best course of action was to immerse himself fully in training with the demon lords for the next month. Benimaru and Diablo would manage Tempest in his absence. Though the town was saddened by his departure, they understood the necessity and supported his decision wholeheartedly. The month was grueling and intense. Each day, Rimuru faced a different demon lord, adapting to their unique combat styles and abilities. He rapidly gained mastery over the Sin series' ultimate skills, his strength growing exponentially. One day, Rimuru found himself standing in the center of an enormous, barren wasteland. The sky above was darkened with swirling clouds, the air crackling with energy. Around him, the most powerful beings in the world, the demon lords, stood ready for battle. Today, he would face them all simultaneously. Guy Crimson, the de facto leader of the demon lords, stepped forward first. His eyes gleamed with excitement, and a wicked smile played on his lips. Are you ready, Rimuru? This won't be easy. Rimuru nodded, steeling himself. Bring it on. The battle began with a sudden, explosive clash. Guy moved with incredible speed, his blade flashing as he struck at Rimuru. Rimuru barely had time to react, summoning his own weapon to parry the blow. The force of the impact sent shockwaves rippling through the ground, but Rimuru held his ground. Before he could counterattack, Dagruel charged in from the side, his massive fists crashing down like meteors. Rimuru leapt back, narrowly avoiding the strike. Dagruel's body defied the laws of physics, his immense bulk moving with impossible agility. He stepped on the air, launching himself at Rimuru with frightening speed. Rimuru quickly adapted, using his ultimate skill prideful Lord Lucifer to analyze and counter Dagruel's attacks. He created barriers to deflect the giant's blows, each impact sending tremors through the earth. Milam, unable to contain her excitement, joined the fray with a roar. Her sheer brute strength was a force to be reckoned with. She punched the ground, creating a shockwave that rippled outwards, attempting to knock Rimuru off balance. He countered by absorbing the energy with gluttonous King Beelzebub and redirecting it towards Milam, but she shrugged it off with a laugh, her eyes gleaming with joy. As Rimuru fought, he noticed Guy watching with a keen interest, adapting to Rimuru's tactics and countering them. Every move Rimuru made was met with an even more cunning response from Guy, elevating the fight to new heights. The real challenge, however, was Veldora. The true dragon's probability manipulation made every encounter unpredictable. No matter how well Rimuru calculated his moves, Veldora's skill would alter the outcomes. Veldora's attacks were relentless, and his mastery over his abilities, honed by Reinhard himself, made him an incredibly formidable opponent. Rimuru summoned all his strength and ingenuity, utilizing the full array of ultimate skills at his disposal. He used the skill Astarte to evolve his abilities on the fly, adapting to the ever-changing battle. Each time he thought he had an edge, Veldora's probability manipulation would twist the battle in unexpected ways. Seal, though immensely powerful, struggled to keep up with the constantly shifting variables. During one particularly intense clash, Veldora launched a devastating energy blast at Rimuru. Ciel's calculations suggested a perfect counter, but Veldora's manipulation caused the blast to veer off course at the last second. Rimuru barely managed to evade, feeling the searing heat as the attack scorched the ground behind him. Milam, meanwhile, was a whirlwind of raw power. Her attacks were direct and overwhelming, but also predictable. Rimuru used this to his advantage, absorbing her energy and redirecting it to counter other attacks. Despite her predictability, the sheer force behind her blows was not to be underestimated. In one instance, her punch shattered a distant planet, the sheer power of her strike leaving Rimuru in awe. As the battle raged on, Rimuru's adaptability and quick thinking allowed him to hold his own against the combined might of the demon lords. Each day, he grew stronger, his mastery over his skills deepening. He learned to anticipate Dagruel's seemingly random movements, counter Guy's cunning strategies, and navigate the chaos of Veldora's probability manipulation. The most pivotal moment came during a clash with Veldora. Rimuru, using the evolved abilities granted by Ciel, managed to predict the unpredictable. For a brief moment, he synchronized perfectly with Veldora's manipulation, landing a decisive blow that sent the true dragon sprawling. The shock in Veldora's eyes was matched by the surprised gasps of the other demon lords. Guy Crimson watched this unfold, a wide grin spreading across his face. Impressive, Rimuru. Truly impressive. Rimuru, panting and drenched in sweat, nodded. Thanks, Guy. I couldn't have done it without all of you pushing me to my limits. The month-long training continued, each session more intense than the last. Rimuru faced the demon lords individually and in groups, each battle teaching him new lessons and refining his skills. He fought in various environments, from desolate wastelands to the vacuum of space, adapting to each new challenge with remarkable speed. One particularly memorable session involved a full-scale battle against all the demon lords. The sheer scale of the conflict threatened to tear the very fabric of reality. Energy blasts and shockwaves rippled through the cosmos as Rimuru fought with everything he had. The combined might of the demon lords was overwhelming, but Rimuru's determination and rapidly evolving skills allowed him to hold his own. Dagruel's massive fists crashed down like hammers, each blow capable of leveling mountains. Rimuru dodged and countered with precise strikes, using prideful Lord Lucifer to analyze and adapt to Dagruel's movements. He created barriers and deflected Dagruel's attacks, the force of their clashes sending tremors through the battlefield. Milam's raw power was a constant threat. Her punches and kicks created shockwaves that shattered planets and stars. Rimuru absorbed and redirected her energy, using gluttonous King Beelzebub to turn her own strength against her. Despite her overwhelming power, Rimuru managed to keep her at bay, his quick thinking and adaptability giving him the edge. Guy's cunning strategies and adaptive fighting style kept Rimuru on his toes. Each move Rimuru made was countered with equal or greater force. The two engaged in a high-speed duel, their attacks creating flashes of light and explosions that illuminated the battlefield. Rimuru used Astarte to evolve his skills on the fly, matching Guy's adaptability with his own. Veldora's probability manipulation remained the most challenging aspect of the training. No matter how well Rimuru planned his moves, Veldora's skill would alter the outcome. Rimuru had to rely on his instincts and quick reflexes to navigate the chaos. He used his evolving abilities to counter Veldora's attacks, each clash pushing his limits further. As the training sessions continued, Rimuru's mastery over his skills grew. He learned to anticipate his opponent's moves and counter them with precision. He adapted to the ever-changing battlefield, using his evolving abilities to stay one step ahead. Each day, he grew stronger, his confidence and determination driving him forward. By the end of the month, Rimuru stood tall, his power rivaling that of the strongest beings in the world. He had faced the demon lords and emerged victorious, his skills honed to perfection. The training had pushed him to his limits, but it had also revealed the true extent of his potential. Guy Crimson, standing at the center of the battlefield, looked at Rimuru with a mix of admiration and respect. "You've come a long way, Rimuru. You're ready for whatever comes next." Rimuru nodded, a determined glint in his eyes. "Thanks, Guy. I couldn't have done it without all of you." The demon lords gathered around, their expressions a mix of pride and satisfaction. They had pushed Rimuru to his limits and watched him grow into a force to be reckoned with. The battles had been intense, but they had also forged a bond of mutual respect and camaraderie. As the training came to an end, Rimuru knew that he was ready to face any challenge that lay ahead. The month-long training had been grueling, but it had also been an invaluable experience. He had gained new skills, honed his abilities, and proven that he was a true force to be reckoned with. Rimuru, now the strongest being on the planet, stood tall among the demon lords who had once been his equals. Guy, Dagruel, Luminous, Veldora, Milam, and Belzard all acknowledged his unparalleled strength. Many had feared that with such immense power, Rimuru might lose control. However, their fears were unfounded. Rimuru remained the same benevolent leader they had always known. Ramirez and Milam were especially relieved and joyful to see that power had not corrupted him. As the demon lords gathered, Seal prepared to evolve and merge Rimuru's skills into something even more extraordinary. The air around them crackled with anticipation as Seal initiated the process, her voice resonating within Rimuru's mind. "Master, we will begin the integration and evolution of your skills. This will be an intense process, but rest assured, I will manage everything." Rimuru nodded, his eyes closed in concentration as he felt the vast energy within him begin to shift and reconfigure. Seal started with the evolution of Raphael, Lord of Wisdom, and Beelzebub, Lord of Gluttony. The merging of these two ultimate skills would give birth to Void God Azathoth. The merging process was nothing short of spectacular. Within Rimuru's consciousness, the vast expanse of imaginary space opened up, a chaotic realm of boundless nihility energy. The raw, destructive power of this space began to weave through the essence of Raphael and Beelzebub, binding them together in a symphony of power and wisdom. Soul consumption emerged first, an advanced form of gluttony, capable of devouring not just physical matter but the very soul of a target, transcending spacetime itself. The potency of this ability was terrifying, allowing Rimuru to absorb the essence of his enemies completely. Next, nihility collapse came into existence, harnessing the destructive energy of imaginary space. Seal meticulously managed this energy, ensuring it could be used efficiently and devastatingly in battle. The evolution continued with nihility supply, a constant flow of energy from an inexhaustible source, significantly amplifying Rimuru's magical power. This energy network extended through soul corridors, granting access to his subordinates in special cases, ensuring that his allies could draw upon his immense reserves. Imaginary space evolved further, providing an infinite, chaotic realm that served as both a prison and a source of unparalleled power. This timeless domain, saturated with nihility energy, could confine anything within its grasp, making it an invaluable asset in both offense and defense. A multidimensional barrier was forged, an impenetrable defense spanning multiple dimensions, ensuring Rimuru's safety against any conceivable threat. The integration of True Dragon abilities culminated in True Dragon released Scorch Katakana Middle Dot Storm Ice and True Dragon Nucleation Scorch Katakana Middle Dot Storm Ice. These abilities allowed Veldora and other True Dragons to exist simultaneously in the outside world while their cores remained assimilated with Rimuru. This process could be reversed with their consent, returning their vast energy to Rimuru when needed. Their energy could also be condensed into spherical cores, which merged with Rimuru's draconic sword, creating a weapon of unimaginable strength and potential. As the integration of Void God Azathoth completed, Seal turned her attention to Shub-Niggurath, Lord of Harvest. The essence of Uriel, Lord of Vows, merged with Food Chain and the vast repository of skills Rimuru had acquired. Skill creation emerged, allowing Rimuru to forge entirely new abilities based on the information gathered from Food Chain and analysis. This power granted him limitless potential in battle, adapting and evolving to any situation. Skill duplication followed, enabling Rimuru to recreate any skill he had fully analyzed. This ability ensured that no power was beyond his reach, making him a versatile and unpredictable adversary. Skill gifting was next, bestowing skills upon compatible targets and removing them as needed. This allowed Rimuru to empower his allies and adjust their abilities to fit any strategic requirement. Finally, skill storage provided a repository for all analyzed skills, ensuring that they could be accessed and recreated at any time. This comprehensive database of abilities made Rimuru's strategic options virtually limitless. The merging process reached its climax, Ciel's voice echoing in Rimuru's mind with an almost reverent tone. Master, the integration is complete. You now possess Void God Azathoth and Shub-Niggurath, Lord of Harvest. Your power has reached unprecedented heights. Rimuru opened his eyes, feeling the immense surge of energy coursing through him. His new abilities resonated within him, their potential almost overwhelming. He stood taller, his aura radiating with the combined might of the two new ultimate skills. Void God Azathoth and Shub-Niggurath, Lord of Harvest, were now part of him, their powers seamlessly integrated into his being. The merging had been successful, and Rimuru knew that he was now more powerful than ever before. As he looked at his friends and allies, he felt a deep sense of gratitude. They had stood by him, supported him, and helped him become the being he was now. With these new powers, he would protect them and their world from any threat that dared to challenge them. Dot. 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 In the Grand Throne Room of the Eastern Empire, Emperor Rudra, who was now fully merged with Michael, sat upon his ornate throne. The room, adorned with golden accents and majestic banners, exuded an aura of absolute power and control. The 10 numbers, his elite warriors, were assembled before him, their presence filling the room with a palpable tension. They were noisy and restless, each one eager to prove their worth and showcase their loyalty. However, the moment Rudra raised a single hand, a profound silence fell over the assembly. Each of the numbers knew their place, and audacity in front of the emperor was not something any of them dared to exhibit. The respect and fear they had for Rudra were deeply ingrained. One did not rise to their positions without understanding the boundaries set by their sovereign. Rudra's eyes, cold and calculating, swept over his elite warriors. His gaze held a weight that pressed upon each of them, demanding their undivided attention and absolute obedience. He began to speak, his voice echoing through the throne room with a resonant authority. The time has come, Rudra announced, his tone measured and deliberate. Our preparations are complete, and now, we move forward with our plans. The numbers listened intently, their expressions shifting from curiosity to determined resolve. Rudra continued, his voice growing more commanding with each word. You will infiltrate the following countries: Tempest, Forgotten Dragon, Fulbrosia, Sarian, Dworgen, Farmus, Ruberios, and the Barren Lands. Each of these nations possesses a swastika. The numbers exchanged brief glances of confusion but quickly masked their uncertainties. The mention of the swastika symbol was enough to quell any doubts. They knew that Rudra's plans were always meticulously crafted, and their role was to execute his orders without question. With a unified movement, the numbers knelt before Rudra, their heads bowed in submission. We accept your orders, your majesty, they intoned in unison, their voices echoing through the vast hall. Rudra nodded in approval, a satisfied smile playing on his lips. Very well. Belgrind, dismiss them and ensure they are prepared for their missions. Belgrind, acting as the marshal of the military, stepped forward with an air of authority. Her presence was as formidable as Rudra's, and the numbers obeyed her without hesitation. She led them out of the throne room, leaving only Rudra, Belgrind, Tatsuya, and Yuki behind. As the heavy doors closed, Rudra's smile widened, his eyes gleaming with anticipation. The demon lords are focusing their efforts on empowering one of their own, he remarked, a hint of disdain in his voice. How can we allow ourselves to be left behind? He turned his gaze to Yuki, who stood with an amiable smile on his face, a stark contrast to the tension in the room. Yuki, ever the opportunist, was quick to respond to Rudra's unspoken invitation. Would you like to learn some ultimate skills? Rudra asked, his tone deceptively casual. Yuki's eyes sparkled with interest. I would never refuse such an offer, friend. Rudra's smile turned sinister. Good. Together, we will ensure that our plans come to fruition and that we remain unmatched in power. The atmosphere in the room shifted, becoming even more charged with the promise of impending conflict and the pursuit of ultimate power. Belgrind stood by Rudra's side, her eyes filled with a mixture of loyalty and ambition, while Tatsuya observed with a calm yet calculating demeanor. The alliance between Rudra and Yuki solidified in that moment, their mutual goals aligning as they prepared to unleash their plans upon the world. Rudra's absolute power and control were evident in every word and action. He was a ruler who commanded not just respect but unwavering obedience. The Eastern Empire was poised for a new chapter of dominance, and under Rudra's leadership, the world would soon feel the weight of their ambitions. Dot. 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 Within just a week, Guy Crimson noticed Rudra's movements. The subtle shifts in power, the deployment of the 10 numbers across various countries, were clear indicators of Rudra's strategic maneuvers. Guy understood the gravity of the situation. Each of those numbers was stronger than the 4th-generation demon lords, making this a matter that couldn't be taken lightly. Recognizing the urgency, Guy called for a meeting. The gathering was to consist of the most powerful and influential beings who could counter this new threat. The attendees included Milam, Ramirez, Belzard, Rimuru, and Noir. To Guy's surprise, Noir brought the 3 demonesses with him, Testarossa, Carrera, and Ultima. As the group assembled, Guy's eyes narrowed at Noir, who stood there nonchalantly. Why the hell are the 3 left primordials from the underworld here in the cardinal world? Guy demanded, his gaze piercing. Rimuru, feeling the weight of Guy's scrutiny, looked away sheepishly. You can blame Diablo for that, he said, pushing the responsibility to his loyal subordinate. Diablo, standing with a satisfied grin, chuckled. Oh, come now, Guy. Is it so wrong to show a little appreciation for my gifts? Guy sighed, shaking his head. Your gifts, huh? You've got a strange way of showing presence. He knew better than to get into a prolonged argument with Diablo, especially when time was of the essence. He looked at the 3 demonesses, who had already begun to pester him, surrounding him with an air of playful annoyance. Testarossa, with her elegant demeanor, smirked. Oh, Guy, you should be thankful. After all, we're here to help. Carrera, her eyes gleaming with mischief, added, we can be quite useful, you know. Perhaps more useful than your maids. Ultima, the most spirited of the 3, laughed. Besides, it's not every day you get the 7 primordial demons together. Consider it a historic moment. Guy glanced around at the gathered individuals. Milam was watching the exchange with a mixture of amusement and curiosity, while Ramirez fluttered around, her eyes wide with interest. Belzard remained stoic, but there was a flicker of intrigue in her eyes. Rimuru, standing next to Diablo, seemed relieved that the tension had been somewhat diffused. The presence of the 7 primordial demons was indeed a rare occurrence. They were born from a single entity, making them, in a sense, siblings. Their collective power was unparalleled, and the dynamics among them were fascinating. Despite their differences and individual quirks, their combined strength was a force to be reckoned with. Guy exhaled slowly, accepting the situation. Fine. Just remember, we're here to strategize against Rudra. Let's stay focused. The room fell into a thoughtful silence. The magnitude of their gathering was not lost on anyone present. For perhaps the first time, the 7 primordial demons stood in the same place, ready to face a common enemy. This moment, steeped in historical significance, was a testament to the gravity of the threat posed by Rudra and his forces. Guy cleared his throat, breaking the silence. All right, let's get down to business. We need to formulate a plan to counter Rudra's actions and protect our territories. Everyone, share your insights. The meeting commenced in earnest, each member contributing their knowledge and strategies. Despite the earlier banter and playful annoyances, a serious and determined atmosphere settled over the room. The 7 primordial demons, along with the other powerful beings present, were united by a common goal, to thwart Rudra's ambitions and maintain the balance of power in the world. The stakes were high, and the path ahead was fraught with challenges. Yet, with the combined might and intellect of this formidable assembly, they were prepared to face whatever came their way. As they delved into their discussions, the weight of their mission pressed upon them, but so did the strength of their unity and resolve. Dash. Please give your support. Web links. Please give your support. Web links. Asthoglho creators thoughts. 6 comments 0 vote. The golden beast is back. Tensura 46. Dash. A year had passed, and the landscape of Fulbrosia was bathed in an eerie, unnatural twilight. Standing at the heart of this twilight was Yuki Kagarizaka, his presence commanding and ominous. Behind him, 9 figures stood silently, each exuding an aura of dread and power. These were the numbers, the elite forces of the Eastern Empire, each a force to be reckoned with in their own right. Yuki, with a calm yet chilling demeanor, raised his hand, signaling the beginning of a ritual that would shake the very foundations of Fulbrosia. It is time, he intoned, his voice echoing through the still air. The day has come to awaken the true power within us and to fulfill the will of the Emperor. The numbers, responding to Yuki's command, took their positions around him, forming a circle. Each one of them began to chant in an ancient, arcane language, their voices blending into a single, haunting melody that resonated with dark energy. As the chants grew louder, the ground beneath them began to tremble, and a massive, intricate sigil appeared, glowing with an ominous light. This world shall witness the rise of a new era, Yuki declared, his eyes glinting with a malevolent gleam. An era where the weak shall perish and the strong shall reign supreme. We are the harbingers of this new dawn. The air grew thick with the palpable sense of impending doom. In the distance, the Harpy settlements, home to 400,000 souls, lay unaware of the fate that awaited them. The sky above the settlements darkened, swirling with unnatural clouds as if the heavens themselves recoiled from the evil being unleashed. Yuki extended his hand toward the settlements, and a beam of dark energy shot forth from the sigil, enveloping the entire area. The Harpies, sensing the imminent danger, began to panic, their screams of fear and confusion echoing through the valleys. But it was too late. The ritual was in motion, and nothing could stop it now. As the beam of energy intensified, it began to consume the very life force of the Harpies. Their bodies disintegrated, their souls drawn into the swirling vortex of energy above the sigil. The sheer volume of souls created a cacophony of wails and cries, a symphony of despair that fueled the ritual. Yuki's eyes glowed with an unholy light as he felt the power surging through him. The ritual was nearing its climax, and the swastika placed in Fulbrosia was beginning to activate. The ground beneath the settlements cracked open, and pillars of dark energy shot up into the sky, forming a towering structure that pulsed with raw, chaotic power. The numbers, standing firm in their positions, channeled their own energy into the sigil, amplifying its power. Each of them was a conduit, a vessel for the immense dark energy that was being harnessed. They stood as silent witnesses to the massacre, their expressions cold and unfeeling. As the last of the Harpy souls was consumed, the sigil's glow reached its peak, casting an otherworldly light over the entire region. The air was filled with the oppressive weight of dark magic, a tangible force that seemed to warp reality itself. Yuki, standing at the center of it all, looked up at the towering structure that had formed. It is done, he said, his voice a mixture of triumph and satisfaction. The first step towards our ultimate goal has been completed. The swastika of Fulbrosia is now active, and with it, we are one step closer to awakening the true power that lies dormant within this world. The numbers, their task complete, stepped back, their expressions unchanged. They had witnessed countless atrocities in their service to the Emperor, but this was something different. This was the beginning of a new chapter, one that would reshape the world according to the Emperor's will. Yuki turned to face them, his eyes still glowing with dark energy. Prepare yourselves, he commanded. There are still other swastikas to activate. We must not rest until our mission is complete. For the glory of the Empire, and the dawn of a new era. With that, the numbers dispersed, each moving towards their next target. The ritual had been a success, and the massacre of the Harpy settlements was a grim testament to their power and resolve. The stage was set for the next phase of their plan, and nothing would stand in their way. The land of Fulbrosia lay in ruins, a silent witness to the horrors that had been unleashed. The once vibrant settlements were now nothing more than a desolate wasteland, filled with the lingering echoes of despair. The activation of the swastika marked a turning point, a harbinger of the dark days to come. And at the center of it all stood Yuki, a figure of terrifying power and ambition. His gaze swept over the devastated landscape, and a cold smile played on his lips. The ritual was only the beginning, and the world would soon know the true extent of the Empire's might. Yuki, standing in the eerie aftermath of the ritual, turned his cold gaze toward Jiwoo and Bernie, numbers 09 and 07 respectively. Jiwoo, Bernie, he called, his voice commanding and icy. The two elite soldiers of the Empire immediately stepped forward, their expressions stoic and unyielding. You two will head towards Farmus, Yuki ordered. Ensure that the swastika there is awakened today. Make no mistake, at least 3 swastikas must be opened by day's end for Lord Reinhard to finally manifest himself. Jiwoo, a short woman with a menacing presence, and Bernie, a slim man with a perpetual scowl, nodded in unison. Their loyalty to the Emperor and their mission was absolute. Yuki's eyes narrowed as he continued, remember, your success is paramount. Should you fail, your souls will be consumed without mercy. Do not underestimate the demon lords. They will notice any disturbance. The two warriors shared a determined glance before bowing to Yuki. Without another word, they turned and left, their steps filled with purpose and resolve. The journey to Farmus was swift, their incredible speed and strength allowing them to cover vast distances in mere moments. As they approached the borders of the small country, they could see the bustling cities and peaceful villages, unaware of the doom that was rapidly approaching. Jiwoo and Bernie paused for a moment on a hill overlooking the capital city of Farmus. It's a shame, Jiwoo remarked, her voice tinged with a rare hint of sadness. This place is so peaceful, so unaware of the storm that's about to descend upon them. Bernie nodded, his eyes cold and unfeeling. It's necessary. For the awakening of Lord Reinhard, for the Emperor, and for the future of the Empire. This country's fate is sealed. With a grim determination, they descended upon Farmus. Their entry was marked by an explosion of power, sending shockwaves through the city and drawing immediate attention from the guards and citizens alike. Panic spread like wildfire as people screamed and fled from the sight of the two formidable figures. Jiwoo unleashed a torrent of dark energy, obliterating buildings and soldiers alike. Her attacks were precise and devastating, leaving no room for resistance. For Lord Reinhard, she murmured, her eyes glowing with a fanatical light. For the future that he will bring. His vision will reshape this world. Bernie, with his immense strength, tore through the defenses of Farmus like paper. He crushed anyone who dared to stand in his way, his movements a blur of destruction. Reinhard Nava, he intoned, his voice booming over the chaos. The harbinger of change, the one who will lead us to a new dawn. Your sacrifices will pave the way for his arrival. The populace of Farmus, numbering over 1 million, stood no chance against the might of Jiwoo and Bernie. The capital city became a slaughterhouse, with bodies strewn across the streets and buildings reduced to rubble. The screams of the dying filled the air, a symphony of despair that echoed through the once peaceful land. Amidst the carnage, Jiwoo and Bernie continued their relentless assault, ensuring that no one would be left alive to hinder their mission. Lord Reinhard's legacy, Jiwoo said, her voice rising above the din of destruction. His vision is our guiding light. This is but a necessary step towards the grand design. As the last of the resistance fell, Jiwoo and Bernie converged at the heart of the city, where the swastika was located. They channeled their energy into the ancient symbol, causing it to pulse with a dark, malevolent light. The ground trembled as the swastika began to awaken, drawing power from the countless souls they had harvested. The sky above Farmus darkened, and a massive vortex of energy formed, signaling the activation of the swastika. Jiwoo and Bernie stepped back, their faces reflecting satisfaction and triumph. It is done, Bernie said, his voice reverberating with the weight of their achievement. The swastika of Farmus is awakened. Jiwoo nodded, her eyes fixed on the swirling vortex. Lord Reinhard will soon be upon us. This world will witness his might, and the Empire will rise to its true glory. Let this be a testament to our unwavering loyalty and our unyielding strength. With the swastika of Farmus now active, Jiwoo and Bernie turned their attention to their next target. They knew that their mission was far from over. The demon lords would not remain idle for long, and the true battle was yet to come. Back in Fulbrosia, Yuki could sense the activation of the swastika. A cold smile crept across his face as he felt the surge of power. Excellent, he murmured. The first step is complete. Soon, Lord Reinhard will walk this world once more, and our enemies will tremble before us. The numbers had their orders, and nothing would stand in their way. The world was on the brink of a new era, one forged in blood and darkness, under the banner of the Eastern Empire and its unrelenting will. In the icy fortress of the northern continent, the atmosphere was tense as the demon lords gathered. Guy Crimson stood at the center, his expression stern and unyielding. Milam arrived first, her eyes blazing with fury and sorrow. She clenched her fists tightly, her usual playful demeanor replaced by a steely resolve. Milam, Guy began, his voice cold and serious. What happened to Frey and the Harpies is a consequence of Rudra's actions. Milam's eyes flashed with grief and rage. They massacred them, Guy. Her entire kingdom, wiped out. I couldn't do anything to stop it. Guy clicked his tongue in frustration. They've moved faster than we anticipated. The prophecy was supposed to start a year from now. The other demon lords arrived one by one, drawn by the gravity of the situation. Rimuru appeared with Veldora, their faces set in grim determination. Dagruel, imposing and silent, exuded a quiet rage, while Dino, usually so laid back, now looked unusually serious. Belzard, Luminous, and Ramirez followed, each bearing expressions of solemn resolve. They've opened 2 swastikas already, Rimuru said, his voice tense. We can't let this continue. Emperor Rudra has to be stopped. The demon lords looked at the sky, where the 2 swastikas glowed ominously, their light piercing through the clouds to reveal the night sky. The beams of light formed a massive circle, a beacon of impending catastrophe. The air was thick with tension and an unspoken fear of what this heralded. Guy turned his attention back to Milam, who stood apart from the others, her mind clearly troubled. Milam, he said, his tone unwavering. You need to decide where you stand. The question hung heavy in the air. Milam's expression wavered, her inner turmoil evident. These were her friends, her allies, but Reinhard was her brother. He had been there for her through everything, from infancy to adulthood. He had taught her, cared for her, and his influence had shaped much of who she was. Guy stepped closer, his red eyes boring into hers. If you side with Reinhard, you'll be standing against us. You know what that means. Milam's eyes filled with tears as she struggled with her emotions. Guy, I don't know what to do. He's my brother. He's always been there for me. Guy's expression remained hard. Reinhard is a threat. If you side with him, you become our enemy. Think carefully, Milam. Milam's gaze dropped to the floor, her mind a whirl of conflicting emotions. Memories of Reinhard's teachings and their time together flooded her mind. She remembered his kindness, his strength, and his unwavering sense of duty. Guy kept his gaze fixed on her, understanding the depth of her struggle. In his thoughts, he recalled Reinhard leaving Milam under his care, trusting him to guide her. This was a test of that trust, and he hoped Milam would see the path she needed to take. Milam looked up, her eyes still shimmering with unshed tears but now filled with determination. You're right, Guy. Brother wouldn't want me to turn my back on my friends or the world. I'll stand with you all. A collective sigh of relief passed through the group. Guy nodded, a rare smile touching his lips. Thank you, Milam. Now, let's prepare. We can't afford any more losses. The demon lords began to strategize, their minds focused on countering the threat posed by the Empire. But the weight of Milam's decision hung over them, a stark reminder of the personal sacrifices each would have to make in the days ahead. Guy placed a hand on Milam's shoulder, giving it a reassuring squeeze. We'll get through this, Milam. Together. Milam nodded, a determined light in her eyes. Together, she echoed. For Frey, for the Harpies, and for everyone who's counting on us. The group's resolve solidified, and they began to form a plan to confront the Empire and stop the opening of more swastikas. The air in the icy fortress crackled with tension as the demon lords continued to strategize. Guy Crimson, his piercing red eyes scanning the gathered lords, broke the silence. Based on their movements and the countries they've targeted, Dworgen is likely their next target, he stated. It's the weakest of the nations without a demon lord guarding it. Rimuru's concern for his friend, King Gazel, was evident. I'll go to Dworgen and help protect it, he volunteered. Guy shook his head, his expression resolute. No, Milam will go. She needs to vent her anger from what happened in Fulbrosia. Milam, her eyes still blazing with fury, nodded without hesitation. I'll make them pay. With that, Milam was dispatched immediately. She arrived at Dworgen to find it already in chaos. Smoke filled the air, and the sounds of battle echoed through the city. Buildings lay in ruins, and the streets were littered with the bodies of fallen soldiers and civilians. At the center of the devastation, 2 figures stood, their presence radiating an aura of invincibility. They were number 08, Marco, and number 03, Granite. Marco, a tall, imposing man with a scarred face, wielded a massive broadsword. Granite, shorter but no less formidable, had an aura of deadly precision, his movements swift and calculated. Both were saints, their power comparable to King Gazel's. Their experience, however, far surpassed that of the king. Milam landed with a thunderous crash, her rage palpable. You will pay for what you've done. She roared, her voice echoing through the ruined city. Marco turned, a cruel smile playing on his lips. So, the infamous Milam Nava has come to play, he taunted. This should be interesting. Granite's expression remained cold and focused. Don't underestimate her, Marco. She's not called the Destroyer for nothing. Milam's eyes blazed with fury. Without another word, she launched herself at the two knights. Her speed was blinding, and she closed the distance between them in an instant. Marco raised his broadsword to block her attack, but the sheer force of her punch sent him skidding backward, his feet digging trenches in the ground. Granite moved to flank her, his movements a blur. He aimed a precise strike at her side, but Milam's reflexes were faster. She dodged and retaliated with a powerful kick that sent Granite crashing into a nearby building. The battle raged on, the ground trembling under the force of their blows. Milam's anger fueled her attacks, each strike carrying the weight of her fury. Marco and Granite fought back with all their might, but it quickly became clear that they were outmatched. Marco swung his broadsword in a wide arc, aiming to cleave Milam in half. She caught the blade with her bare hands, her eyes glowing with an intense blue light. With a roar, she shattered the sword into pieces, the shards scattering like dust. Granite, seeing an opening, unleashed a flurry of rapid strikes. Milam dodged each one effortlessly, her movements fluid and precise. She countered with a series of punches and kicks, each one landing with devastating force. Granite was sent flying through the air, his body slamming into the ground with a resounding crash. Despite the beating they were taking, Marco and Granite showed no signs of frustration. Instead, they smiled, a chilling, satisfied grin that unnerved Milam. Why are you smiling? She demanded, her voice dripping with contempt. Marco wiped blood from his mouth, his grin never wavering. We've already fulfilled our mission, he said cryptically. Milam's eyes widened in realization, but it was too late. The ground beneath her began to tremble, and a dark, ominous energy surged from the bodies of the fallen. The quality of the souls from the slaughter was enough to activate the swastika. A massive, dark symbol began to form in the sky, its energy pulsing with malevolent power. Milam's heart sank as she realized what had happened. Despite her efforts, she had been unable to stop the activation of the swastika. Marco and Granite's bodies started to disintegrate, their smiles never fading. We may have lost this battle, but the war is far from over, Granite said, his voice echoing as his body turned to dust. Milam stood amidst the ruins of Dworgen, her fists clenched in frustration and sorrow. She had defeated the knights, but at what cost? The swastika was now activated, its dark energy looming over the city like a harbinger of doom. Back at the icy fortress, Guy Crimson and the other demon lords felt the shift in the air. The activation of the swastika sent a ripple of dark energy across the land. Guy's expression darkened as he sensed the change. Milam has failed, he said, his voice grim. The swastika has been activated. Rimuru clenched his fists, his resolve hardening. We need to move quickly. We can't let them activate any more of these swastikas. The demon lords nodded in agreement. The battle was far from over, and they knew that the true fight was just beginning. Dash. The circle of light in the sky pulsated with dark energy, casting a foreboding shadow over the land. The demon lords watched in tense silence, their expressions a mix of dread and determination. Suddenly, the dark energy began to wane, and the circle of light started to dissolve. Before they could comprehend what was happening, a new light began to emerge from the heavens. It was not dark or ominous, but a brilliant golden hue that shone with an almost divine radiance. The golden light spread rapidly, engulfing the entire sky and banishing the dark clouds that had gathered. Guy Crimson's eyes widened in shock. It's starting. Milam, still standing in the ruins of Dworgen, looked up, her expression a mix of awe and apprehension. It's so bright. Rimuru shielded his eyes from the intense light, feeling an overwhelming power emanating from the golden glow. This is different. What is going on? Veldora's normally confident demeanor faltered as he gazed at the sky. This light. There's no doubt. The golden light intensified, its brilliance becoming almost unbearable. The entire world seemed to stand still, every living being gazing up in wonder and fear. The demon lords could feel the immense power radiating from the light, a power unlike anything they had ever encountered. Luminous, her eyes narrowed against the brightness, whispered, "This is undoubtedly his light." Dagruel clenched his fists, feeling the weight of the moment. We must prepare for whatever is coming. The golden light continued to grow, filling every corner of the world with its radiant glow. The demon lords and their allies could do nothing but stare, their minds racing with the possibilities of what this new phenomenon could mean. Just as the light reached its peak, it exploded in a final, blinding flash. Everyone was forced to close their eyes against the overwhelming brilliance, the golden light consuming everything in its path. In that instant, the world was engulfed in the blinding radiance, leaving everyone in stunned silence. The fate of their world, and the true nature of the golden light, remained a mystery, but one thing was certain, nothing would ever be the same again. Ha 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 ha. A sinister laugh was all that heard. Dash. Please give your support. Web links. Please give your support. Web links. Asthoglho creators thoughts. 16 comments 0 vote. Lord of Gods. Throw some stones for motivation alright. Dash. The world was plunged into an eerie silence, the golden light still radiating from the heavens. The calm before the storm was palpable, as if the very fabric of reality was holding its breath. Suddenly, a chilling, maniacal laugh echoed across the globe, reverberating through every corner of existence. It was a sound that pierced the soul, a harbinger of dread that sent shivers down the spine of every living being. The laugh grew louder, more pronounced, until it became impossible to ignore. In Tempest, Rimuru felt an inexplicable shiver run down his spine. What is this? He muttered, his eyes wide with unease. Veldora, standing beside him, also felt the ominous presence, his usually confident demeanor shaken. Guy Crimson's eyes narrowed as he felt the shift in the atmosphere. This laugh, it's him, he said through gritted teeth. Reinhard. Milam, still in Dworgen, looked up at the sky, her eyes filled with a mix of anger and fear. Brother. The laugh seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere at once, a haunting melody of madness that filled the air. It grew in intensity, each note a testament to the malevolent power behind it. As the laugh reached its crescendo, the golden light began to converge, gathering into a single point in the sky. The brightness was blinding, more intense than anything the world had ever seen. The heavens themselves seemed to tremble as the light coalesced into a massive structure, an ethereal palace of shimmering gold and blinding radiance. The sheer magnificence of it was overwhelming, a sight both inspiring and terrifying. The sky began to crack, fissures spreading like spiderwebs, revealing a dark void beyond. From this void, a figure began to emerge, his presence heralded by the haunting laugh that still echoed through the world. Reinhard's form materialized slowly, stepping through the cracks in reality as if he was tearing through the very fabric of existence. His silhouette was imposing, an embodiment of absolute power and unrelenting madness. The golden light seemed to bow before him, swirling around his form like a celestial mantle. His eyes glowed with a malevolent intensity, and his expression was one of pure, unadulterated madness. As Reinhard stepped fully into the world, the sky seemed to shatter completely, the cracks widening until they formed a vast chasm of darkness. The laugh echoed one final time, louder and more chilling than ever before fading into an oppressive silence. The entire world seemed to hold its breath, the air thick with an almost tangible fear. The aura that emanated from Reinhard was unlike anything anyone had ever experienced. It was a suffocating wave of terror, a malevolent force that seeped into the very bones of those who felt it. The sheer weight of his presence caused the ground to tremble, and the air to grow heavy with dread. Even the strongest beings in the world felt the crushing pressure of his aura. In Tempest, Benimaru and the other leaders of Rimuru's nation felt the oppressive weight of Reinhard's presence. What is this monstrous power? Benimaru gasped, struggling to remain standing. Xian, who was usually fearless, found herself trembling. Rimuru-sama, what is happening? Rimuru clenched his fists, feeling the overwhelming dread wash over him. This is Reinhard's power, he said, his voice barely above a whisper. Throughout the world, people fell to their knees, unable to withstand the crushing fear that Reinhard's aura induced. In some places, the sheer terror drove people to madness, their minds snapping under the pressure. Suicidal thoughts took root in the weak-hearted, and many succumbed to the despair that filled their souls. It was a wave of chaos and panic, a testament to the terrifying power that Reinhard wielded. The demon lords and true dragons, though more resilient, also felt the weight of Reinhard's presence. Velzard and Velgrind, Reinhard's aunts, exchanged worried glances. He's back, Velzard said, her voice laced with concern. After all these years. Velgrind nodded, her expression grim. We have to be ready. His power, it's unlike anything we've ever faced. Even Dagruel, known for his stoic demeanor, felt a chill run down his spine. This isn't good, he muttered. His aura alone is enough to drive the world into madness. Guy Crimson, always composed, struggled to maintain his usual calm. We need to act quickly, he said, his voice tense. If we don't, this world will fall into chaos. Milam, her heart heavy with conflict, clenched her fists. Brother, why have you returned like this? She whispered, tears welling in her eyes. Why now? As Reinhard's form fully manifested, his laugh once again echoed through the world, a final, chilling note that seemed to seal the fate of all who heard it. The golden light surrounding him flared brightly, blinding all who looked upon it. The sheer brilliance of it was overwhelming, forcing even the strongest to avert their gaze. In the midst of the blinding light, the sky continued to crack and shatter, the void beyond growing ever larger. The golden palace, now fully formed, loomed ominously above, a testament to Reinhard's unholy power. The air was thick with tension, the world teetering on the edge of an abyss. Rimuru, struggling to stand against the overwhelming aura, looked up at the sky. We have to stop this, he said, his voice filled with determination. We can't let him bring this world to ruin. Veldora, standing beside him, nodded. We fight together, Rimuru. We face this madness head on. Guy Crimson, his eyes burning with resolve, stepped forward. This is what we've trained for. We stop Reinhard, no matter what. As the golden light reached its peak, it exploded in a final, blinding flash, consuming everything in its path. The world was engulfed in a brilliant radiance, the oppressive aura of fear and madness reaching its zenith. The demon lords, the true dragons, and all the world's inhabitants braced themselves for the coming storm, knowing that their greatest battle was about to begin. In that moment, the world was plunged into chaos, the oppressive aura of Reinhard's presence casting a dark shadow over all. The fight for survival, for sanity, and for the very fate of the world, had begun. In the Eastern Empire, the grand halls of the imperial palace were filled with a palpable sense of anticipation. The air was thick with the weight of destiny, as though the very walls could sense the monumental events unfolding. At the heart of this power was Rudra, or rather the Mana's Michael, who overtook him. Seated on his ornate throne, Michael wore a smile that was both serene and sinister. The return of Reinhard, even in a shadowy form, was a significant step toward reviving his Lord Veldanava. The cost of his entire army was a price he was more than willing to pay. Michael's piercing eyes scanned the room before settling on Yuki Nava, who stood with a confident yet respectful demeanor. Yuki, Michael began, his voice a blend of Rudra's authority and his own divine arrogance. With Reinhard's partial manifestation, we are one step closer to our ultimate goal. How goes the transmutation of gold ritual? Yuki bowed slightly, his expression unreadable. The ritual is progressing well, Your Excellency. However, it is only feasible to open 3 swastikas a day. Given that we've already achieved today's quota, it would be unwise to proceed further. Michael's eyes narrowed slightly, intrigued by this information. And where did you come by this limitation, Yuki? Who provided you with such knowledge? Yuki's smile was enigmatic, his eyes reflecting a hint of mischief. A certain primordial demon shared this with me. Their knowledge of ancient rituals and their constraints is unparalleled. Michael leaned back on his throne, pondering Yuki's words. His fingers drummed lightly on the armrest, a rhythm that seemed to echo the heartbeat of the empire itself. Very well, Yuki. Your caution is noted. Now, tell me of your progress with your skills. Yuki's eyes gleamed with pride. I have completed the merging of every angelic series ultimate skill, including Raphael and Uriel. The result is a single god-level ultimate skill, Lord of Gods, you. Michael's eyes widened with genuine delight. Excellent, Yuki. With such power at your command, our plans are all but assured. Yuki bowed again, though his mind was already turning to the conversation he needed to have with his new skill. As Michael reclined in his throne, savoring the progress they had made, Yuki mentally initiated a dialogue with Lord of Gods, you. The skill, which contained the essence of Raphael, responded immediately, its voice clear and precise. What is it that you wish to know, Master? The skill inquired. Yuki's mental voice was calm, yet tinged with curiosity. Is the plan progressing as it should? Affirmative, the skill responded. Everything is going according to the projections. The activation of the swastikas is proceeding within expected parameters. Reinhard's partial manifestation has caused the desired destabilization among the demon lords and true dragons. Yuki's eyes flickered with satisfaction. Good. And what of the next steps? How soon can we proceed with the subsequent stages of the ritual? The skill's response was instantaneous. The transmutation of gold ritual requires precise timing. The opening of additional swastikas must be carefully managed to avoid overloading the ritual framework. Another 3 swastikas can be activated tomorrow. Until then, our energies should be focused on maintaining the stability of the current manifestations. Yuki nodded slightly, his thoughts racing. Understood. What about the potential interference from the demon lords and true dragons? How significant is the threat they pose? The demon lords and true dragons are formidable adversaries, the skill acknowledged. However, their current state of disarray works to our advantage. Their focus on Reinhardt's shadow form diverts their attention from the broader ritual framework. As long as they remain preoccupied, their interference will be minimal. Yuki allowed himself a small smile. Good. And if they do manage to interfere? Contingencies are in place, the skill assured him. Your own strength, combined with the power of Lord of Gods, is more than sufficient to counter any immediate threats. Additionally, the Empire's military forces are on high alert and ready to respond as necessary. Satisfied, Yuki ended the mental conversation and returned his full attention to Michael. All preparations are in place, Your Excellency. We are poised to continue as planned, with minimal risk of disruption. Michael's smile broadened, a look of satisfaction settling on his features. Excellent, Yuki. Your diligence and foresight are commendable. We are on the cusp of a new era, one where Lord Veldanava will reign supreme once more. Yuki bowed deeply. It is my honor to serve, Your Excellency. The return of Lord Veldanava is our ultimate goal, and I will ensure that no obstacle stands in our way. Michael nodded, his gaze distant as he contemplated the future. Indeed. With Reinhardt's power at our disposal and the might of the Empire behind us, nothing can stop us. The world will be remade in our image, and those who stand against us will be swept aside. As Yuki straightened, a sense of purpose filled the room. The stage was set, the players in their places, and the script written by destiny itself. All that remained was to follow the path laid out before them, a path that would lead to the resurrection of the most powerful being the world had ever known. The weight of their ambition hung heavy in the air, a palpable force that seemed to resonate with the very stones of the palace. The future was uncertain, but for Michael and Yuki, there was no turning back. Their course was set, and they would see it through to the end, no matter the cost. In the grand hall of Guy Crimson's castle, the atmosphere was tense as the demon lords gathered once more. The room, filled with ancient magic and the weight of millennia, seemed to hum with anticipation. Guy, standing at the head of the table, cast a serious glance over his fellow demon lords. Milam, Ramirez, Belzard, Rimuru, Beldora, Dagruel, Dino, and Luminous were present, each bearing expressions ranging from anger to worry. Guy broke the silence, his voice steady and authoritative. We need to discuss our countermeasures. The swastikas are indestructible and cannot be placed in space pockets, but they have a certain flaw. The demon lords leaned in, their focus sharpening. Guy continued, these swastikas have a specific resonance with the earth. We cannot destroy them, but we can move them. By relocating them, we can delay the Empire's ritual. We must be strategic about this. Thoughts? Rimuru spoke first, his usual easygoing demeanor replaced by a rare seriousness. If we relocate them to areas of lesser strategic value, we can buy ourselves some time. But we need to ensure they remain hidden and inaccessible. Dagruel nodded in agreement. We have the power to move them, but it must be done with precision. We cannot afford to make mistakes. Luminous added, we should use our forces to guard the new locations. The Empire will come for them, and we must be ready. Milam, still fuming from the loss of Fulbrosia, clenched her fists. I'll make sure they pay for what they've done. Guy's eyes met hers, his expression softening slightly. Milam, we need your strength on the front lines. Leave the relocation to others. We can't afford to lose you if the Empire strikes back. Milam's anger was tempered by a sense of duty. She nodded reluctantly, her resolve firm. Fine, but I won't sit idle. We need to be proactive. Beldora, usually more carefree, added his thoughts. We should also prepare for direct confrontation. The Empire won't sit back and watch their plans fall apart. We need to be ready for their retaliation. Guy nodded, approving of the input from each demon lord. We move the swastikas today. Make sure your people are ready. We don't have the luxury of time. The demon lords dispersed, each heading to their respective domains to set their plans in motion. The day passed with an eerie calm, the anticipation of another attack hanging heavy in the air. But as night fell, they were stunned to find that no attack came. The Empire was silent, and the demon lords remained on high alert. The next day, deep within the Eastern Empire, Yuki Naba stood before Tatsuya Kondo, the number 01 in the Empire ranks. Yuki's expression was calm, yet his eyes gleamed with a sinister light. Tatsuya, proceed with the plan. Your target is Sarian. Activate the swastika there. Tatsuya bowed, his demeanor cold and efficient. As you command, Yuki. With a flicker of magic, Tatsuya transported himself to Sarian. However, upon his arrival, his sharp eyes immediately noticed something was amiss. The swastika was missing. His frown deepened as he surveyed the area, sensing the faint traces of powerful magic. The demon lords had already taken measures. Tatsuya returned to Yuki, his report concise. The swastika in Sarian has been relocated. The demon lords anticipated our move. Yuki's eyes widened slightly in surprise, but then a slow smile spread across his face. Impressive. I didn't expect them to act so quickly. This means the other swastikas must have been moved as well. Michael, controlling Rudra's body, listened intently. His expression remained stoic, but there was a flicker of concern in his eyes. This complicates things. We need those swastikas to complete the ritual. Yuki's smile widened, a glint of cunning in his eyes. No need to worry. We have a contingency plan. Do you remember the runes we placed on each swastika when we first located them a year ago? The numbers nodded in unison, their expressions reflecting a mix of understanding and anticipation. Yuki continued, those runes are tracking devices. With them, we can locate the swastikas no matter where they are moved. The demon lords may have hidden them, but they cannot hide them from us. He activated his ultimate skill, and a series of magical glyphs appeared in the air before him. His eyes glowed with power as he traced the lines of energy connecting to each swastika. One by one, their locations appeared in his mind, each a pinpoint of light on a mental map. Yuki's smile turned into a grin. We know where they are now. The ritual will continue, and no one can stop it. Michael's eyes gleamed with approval. Excellent work, Yuki. Proceed with retrieving the swastikas. Ensure that our forces are prepared for any resistance. Yuki bowed slightly. Of course, Your Excellency. We will retrieve them and ensure the ritual continues without further delays. As he turned to leave, his mind was already racing with the next steps. The demon lords had made their move, but Yuki was always several steps ahead. The game was far from over, and he relished the challenge. The transmutation of gold ritual would continue, and the resurrection of Reinhardt's full power was inevitable. The balance of power in the world was shifting, and Yuki intended to be at the center of it all. With the swastikas located and the next phase of the plan in motion, the Empire's ambition burned brighter than ever. The demon lords would not stand a chance against the calculated might of Yuki and Michael's combined forces. The ritual would succeed, and the world would tremble before their power. Dot. 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 In the heart of her territory, Luminous stood before a concealed chamber hidden deep within her grand cathedral. She had kept this secret for centuries, the one thing she cherished above all else, even if it meant risking everything. As she walked through the darkened hallways, her footsteps echoed softly, a somber rhythm accompanying her heavy heart. With a wave of her hand, ancient runes lit up, and the door to the hidden chamber slid open. Inside, bathed in a soft, ethereal glow, lay the preserved body of Reinhard. His form was immaculate, untouched by time, preserved in a state of perfect stasis. Luminous approached, her usually impassive face now softened with a rare display of emotion. She knelt beside him, reaching out a hand to gently touch his face. The coldness of his skin sent a shiver through her, but it was a familiar touch, one that brought back a flood of memories. Reinhard, she whispered, her voice breaking slightly. I've kept you safe all these years, hidden from the world. But now, I must choose. Her eyes welled up with unshed tears as she bit her lower lip, struggling to maintain her composure. She leaned down, pressing a tender kiss to his forehead, a final act of love and farewell. I have to let you go. The world, it needs saving. I can't keep hiding you, not anymore. If I do, everything will be lost. Taking a deep breath, she stood up, her resolve hardening. She knew what she had to do, even though it tore at her heart. With a final, lingering glance at Reinhardt's body, she whispered, "Goodbye, my love. I will always remember you." She turned and left the chamber, sealing it behind her one last time. Luminous made her way back to the main hall of her cathedral, where her loyal subordinates awaited her return. They could see the pain in her eyes, but none dared to speak of it. We need to take his body to Guy, she said, her voice firm despite the sorrow that lingered. It must be done. Reinhardt's power cannot be allowed to destroy the world. Her subordinates nodded, understanding the gravity of her decision. They moved swiftly, preparing for the journey to Guy's castle. Luminous herself led the procession, carrying the weight of her choice with every step. She had chosen the world over her love, and now she had to see it through. As they traveled, Luminous couldn't help but reflect on the moments she had shared with Reinhardt, the times they had spent together. But she pushed those thoughts aside, focusing on the task at hand. When they finally arrived at Guy's castle, she was ready. Guy met them at the entrance, his expression unreadable. Luminous approached him, holding Reinhard's body with a reverence that spoke volumes. Take him, she said quietly. Keep him safe, and do what must be done. Guy nodded, understanding the enormity of her sacrifice. He took the body from her, his grip steady and sure. You finally released this. Took you long enough. This is the only way to save the world. Luminous stepped back, watching as Guy carried Reinhard's body into the depths of his fortress. She felt a mix of relief and sorrow, knowing that she had made the hardest choice of her life. Turning away, she whispered one last farewell. Goodbye, the one I admire. May you find peace in the next life. With that, she left Guy's castle, her heart heavy but her resolve unbroken. She had chosen to save the world, and now she would do everything in her power to see that it was done. Dash. Please give your support. Web links. 13 comments 0 vote. Meeting between the evil and good. Are you guys interested in a Reinhard that is stronger or equal to the sixth heaven? Dash. In the incomplete or shadow of Gladsheimer, a realm of AWE-inspiring splendor and primordial light, Reinhard stood at the center, a figure of unparalleled charisma and power. His presence was overwhelming, a being of pure dominance and authority. The long-term plan he had meticulously crafted over millennia was finally reaching its zenith, and the ritual's culmination was within sight. Before him, three Einherjar knelt in unwavering loyalty and reverence. Feldway, Zelenus, and Noir, each a formidable entity in their own right, bowed deeply, their faces a mixture of awe and unwavering dedication. Reinhard's laughter, that bone-chilling, world-reverberating sound, had already set the tone. Now, with a more controlled but equally powerful demeanor, he gazed down at his subordinates. His amusement was palpable, a hint of a smile playing at the corners of his lips as he regarded the three. Feldway, Zelenus, Noir, he began, his voice a deep, resonant command that demanded absolute attention. The plan we have nurtured for eons is finally bearing fruit. The swastikas are being activated, and our goal is within reach. Noir, his dark eyes glittering with a mix of excitement and malice, stepped forward. My lord, he said, his tone deferential, the demon lords have taken measures to relocate the swastikas. They are attempting to thwart our efforts by scattering them across the world. Reinhard's smile widened, a predatory gleam in his eyes. How amusing, he murmured. Their futile attempts to outmaneuver us are nothing but the last gasps of a dying world. Yet, I must admit, their resilience is entertaining. He paused, his gaze turning inward as he considered the implications. Those, too, he mused, his tone darkening slightly. They have grown significantly. They will undoubtedly pose a challenge, but one that I eagerly anticipate. His eyes flicked back to his kneeling subordinates, the momentary seriousness giving way to a renewed sense of purpose. Feldway, he commanded, you will open the fifth swastika tomorrow. I wish to witness the spectacle that those, too, will present. Their resistance will only make our victory all the sweeter. Feldway bowed his head lower, his voice filled with solemn determination. As you command, my lord. The fifth swastika will be opened, and the ritual will continue as planned. Reinhard then turned his attention to Noir, his most cunning and treacherous follower. Noir, he said, his voice a silk-wrapped blade, return to your post. Ensure that our operations proceed without interruption. Your delight in your work has not gone unnoticed, and I expect nothing less than perfection. Noir's smile was a dark, twisted thing, filled with a perverse joy. It will be done, my lord, he replied, his voice a whisper of malevolence. I live to serve. With a nod, Reinhard dismissed them. The three Einherjar rose, their loyalty and determination clear in their eyes. They turned and left, ready to carry out their master's will with unwavering dedication. As the chamber emptied, Reinhard's gaze lingered on the darkened horizon of Gladsheimer. His thoughts returned to the demon lords, to the challenges that lay ahead. The ritual was proceeding, but the true battle was yet to come. His anticipation was a tangible thing, a hunger for the confrontation that would test his mettle against the mightiest beings of this world. He raised his hand, feeling the power of the incomplete Gladsheimer thrumming beneath his fingertips. The sky above the realm crackled with energy, a reflection of his own boundless ambition. Soon, he murmured to himself, his voice a promise of impending doom. Soon, the world will tremble before me. The aura of fear that had traveled with him through the void for 2,000 years radiated outwards, touching the hearts and minds of all who felt it. Even the strongest beings in the world could barely resist its effects, the madness and despair creeping into their thoughts. For the ordinary people, it was a nightmare given form, driving many to the brink of insanity or beyond. Reinhard reveled in the chaos, the disorder that heralded his return. His laughter, though silent now, echoed in the hearts of those who dared to challenge him. He was a force of nature, a being whose very presence reshaped the fabric of reality. The ritual would not fail. The swastikas would be activated, and the world would bend to his will. No matter the resistance, no matter the cost, Reinhard's vision would be realized. And as he stood there, in the shadow of Gladsheimer, Reinhard's thoughts turned once more to the demon lords, to the battle that would determine the fate of all. His anticipation grew, a dark, twisted joy at the prospect of their confrontation. He had waited for this moment, planned for it meticulously. Now, it was within his grasp. Let them come, he whispered, his voice a challenge to the world itself. Let them try to stop me. They will find that their efforts are in vain. With a final, lingering glance at the horizon, Reinhard turned away, his mind already plotting the next move in his grand design. The world would bow to him, or it would be destroyed. There was no other option. And so, the shadow of Gladsheimer loomed over the world, a harbinger of the darkness to come. Dot. 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 Tatsuya, having received another crucial order from Yuki, moved with swift precision towards the southern kingdom. Yuki had indicated that the swastika was hidden beneath the capital, and Tatsuya had free rein to do whatever was necessary to complete the task. As he approached the kingdom, the air around him seemed to tense with the anticipation of the battle to come. Upon reaching the capital, Tatsuya's presence alone was enough to send ripples of fear throughout the city. But as he descended towards the hidden swastika, he was met with an imposing figure, Dagruel, the fearsome giant demon lord. Dagruel's towering form cast a shadow over Tatsuya. You shall not pass, intruder, Dagruel's voice boomed with a resonant authority that seemed to shake the very earth. Tatsuya, unfazed by the massive figure before him, drew his katana with a calm and deliberate motion. The blade gleamed with an almost ethereal light, reflecting Tatsuya's mastery over his weapon. I have a task to complete, and I won't let anyone stand in my way, he replied coolly. The battle commenced with a fury that seemed to break the atmosphere itself. Tatsuya's katana moved like lightning, striking with precision and speed that defied comprehension. Each slash was a masterpiece of martial prowess, designed to exploit the smallest weakness. But Dagruel's body was a fortress. His skin, tougher than any known material, repelled the strikes that would have felled lesser beings. Tatsuya's attacks were relentless. He danced around Dagruel, his movements a blur as he sought an opening. Sparks flew as the katana met Dagruel's skin, the impact creating shockwaves that echoed through the city. But for all his skill and speed, Tatsuya found himself stymied. Dagruel's body did not adhere to the conventional laws of physics. No matter how precise or powerful his strikes, they seemed to have little effect. Dagruel retaliated with immense power, his fists crashing down like meteors. Each blow created craters in the ground, sending debris flying in all directions. Tatsuya evaded with near superhuman agility, his katana flashing as he parried and countered. But it was clear that brute force alone would not overcome Dagruel. Realizing the futility of continuing with his katana, Tatsuya sheathed the blade and drew his gun, Nambu pistol. This weapon was not just any firearm, it was a tool of divine retribution, capable of unleashing immense destructive power. A god-level weapon. Dagruel, sensing a shift in the battle, braced himself. Tatsuya's first shot rang out like thunder, the bullet infused with a power that could pierce the very fabric of reality. It struck Dagruel with an explosive force, sending him staggering backward. The giant demon lord roared in pain and anger, his eyes blazing with a fierce determination. The gunfight that ensued was a spectacle of destruction. Each shot from Nambu pistol unleashed a torrent of energy, the bullets tearing through the air with a terrifying speed. Dagruel countered with his own formidable attacks, his fists and body moving with a surprising agility for one so massive. The ground around them shattered, buildings crumbled, and the sky seemed to darken with the intensity of their clash. Tatsuya fired in rapid succession, each shot calculated and precise. He aimed for Dagruel's vital points, seeking to exploit any weakness. The explosions from the bullets created shockwaves that rippled through the city, reducing structures to rubble. But Dagruel was relentless, his durability and strength seemingly boundless. Dagruel launched himself at Tatsuya, his fists coming down like sledgehammers. Tatsuya dodged with incredible speed, his movements a blur as he returned fire. The impact of their attacks sent tremors through the ground, causing buildings to collapse and the earth to quake. Despite the immense power of the pistol, Dagruel's resilience was astonishing. He absorbed the blows, his body regenerating at an extraordinary rate. Tatsuya's shots were powerful enough to pierce through mountains, yet Dagruel endured, his will unbroken. The battle raged on, each combatant pushing the other to their limits. Tatsuya's mastery of his gun was evident in every shot, his skill unmatched. But Dagruel's raw power and resilience made him a formidable opponent. The two were locked in a stalemate, neither able to gain a decisive advantage. Dagruel's fist struck the ground, creating shockwaves that sent Tatsuya flying. But Tatsuya landed gracefully, immediately returning fire with a barrage of bullets. The explosions lit up the sky, the sheer force of their clash felt miles away. Dagruel roared, his voice a thunderous declaration of his strength. He charged at Tatsuya, his fists ready to crush anything in their path. Tatsuya met him head-on, firing shot after shot with unerring accuracy. The impact of their clash created a storm of energy, the very air crackling with power. As the battle continued, it became clear that neither combatant would yield. Tatsuya's skill with Nambu and his unrelenting determination were matched by Dagruel's overwhelming power and resilience. The city around them lay in ruins, a testament to the intensity of their conflict. Finally, both fighters paused, breathing heavily. The ground beneath them was scorched and shattered, the air thick with the aftermath of their battle. Tatsuya and Dagruel stared at each other, acknowledging the strength and tenacity of their opponent. Dagruel's eyes burned with a fierce light, his body battered but unbowed. "You are strong," he admitted, his voice a rumble of grudging respect. "However, I will definitely kill you." Tatsuya nodded, his grip on Nambu pistol unwavering. "Kill me," he replied, his voice calm and resolute. "I would love to see that scene." The battle had reached a stalemate, a temporary pause in their clash. But both knew that it was only a matter of time before they resumed their fight. The swastika remained hidden, the fate of the southern kingdom hanging in the balance. Tatsuya Kondo, his patience waning, sent a telepathic message to Yuki, requesting backup. "I'm about to take Dagruel's will off him." With his message sent, he faced Dagruel once more, determination hardening his gaze. The two resumed their fierce battle, exchanging devastating blows. Tatsuya's katana, wielded with unparalleled skill, struck at Dagruel with relentless precision. However, the giant demon lord's body defied the known laws of physics, rendering Tatsuya's attacks less effective. Dagruel's sheer physical resilience and immense strength created a formidable challenge. He holstered his katana and drew his gun, a weapon infused with the power of his ultimate skill, Sandalphon. The air around him shimmered with divine energy as he prepared his next move. Tatsuya aimed his gun with a focused intensity, channeling the full power of Sandalphon into a single bullet. This was the Judgment Bullet, capable of traveling at Mach 100. He imbued it with a necrosis bullet, designed to disrupt and destroy internal circuits. The combination of these two devastating powers created a weapon of unparalleled destructive potential. Dagruel, sensing the imminent danger, braced himself for impact. The bullet tore through the air, a blur of lethal intent, and struck Dagruel with pinpoint accuracy. The impact was catastrophic. Dagruel roared in agony as the bullet's effects ravaged his body, disrupting his internal circuits and causing immense pain. The giant demon lord's form shuddered as he struggled to maintain control. Tatsuya watched with a cold, calculating gaze as Dagruel rampaged, his movements becoming increasingly erratic. Just as Dagruel's thrashing reached its peak, Yuki arrived on the scene. He surveyed the chaos with a calm, almost amused expression. "Troublesome," Yuki muttered, noting that Dagruel did not possess an Angel Series ultimate skill. However, his smile remained unfaltering. "If he doesn't have one, then I can just put one on him," he declared confidently. Raising his hand, Yuki invoked his powers. A radiant light enveloped Dagruel as Yuki began to bestow an Angel Series ultimate skill upon him. The process was intense and grueling, as Dagruel's formidable will fought against the foreign power trying to take hold. Dagruel roared again, his defiance momentarily surging. But the power of Yuki's ultimate skill was relentless, slowly overpowering the giant demon lord's resistance. Dagruel's struggles began to subside, his wild movements slowing as the Angel Series ultimate skill took hold. Yuki's smile grew as he felt the control solidify. "Welcome to my control," he said, his voice filled with chilling authority. Dagruel's eyes, once blazing with defiance, now took on a dull, obedient sheen. The immense willpower that had defined him was now shackled by Yuki's command. Tatsuya, seeing the change in Dagruel, lowered his weapon. It's done, he said, a mix of relief and satisfaction in his voice. Yuki nodded, pleased with the outcome. Excellent work, Tatsuya, he praised. Now, let's move on to the next phase of our plan. The battlefield, once a scene of brutal combat, now lay in eerie silence. The swastika beneath the capital remained hidden, but with Dagruel under Yuki's control, its activation was only a matter of time. Dagruel, Yuki commanded, you will guard this location and ensure that the swastika is activated as planned. Dagruel, now completely under Yuki's control, nodded mechanically. As you command, he responded, his voice devoid of its former thunderous power. As Tatsuya and Yuki prepared to leave the battlefield, a colossal aura descended upon the place. Kondo's instincts screamed danger, and he immediately went on high alert. However, Yuki simply smiled, a glint of anticipation in his eyes. So, he's finally here, Yuki murmured, his smile widening. Before them appeared Rimuru, his presence imposing and his face etched with cold fury. This was the one Yuki considered his true rival, the opposite to his own powers. While Yuki wielded the Angel Series ultimate skills, Rimuru possessed the Sin Series ultimate skills. An ironic twist of fate. Yuki, a devil, represented heaven, while Rimuru, the good one, represented hell. Rimuru's eyes were fixed on Dagruel, who now stood like a lifeless puppet under Yuki's control. He could feel the change in Dagruel, and Seal, his manas born from ultimate skill Raphael, quickly analyzed the situation. Dagruel has been controlled by an external force, Seal reported. As Rimuru was about to order Seal to lift the control, Yuki raised his hand. I know what you're thinking, he said, his voice smooth and taunting. But I'd advise against it. Rimuru's eyes narrowed. What are you talking about? Yuki's smile never wavered. The Angel Series ultimate skill I planted in Dagruel is more than just a means of control. It's a bomb. If you attempt to alter or remove it, Dagruel's body will disintegrate. The amiable smile on Yuki's face twisted into something more maniacal from Rimuru's perspective. So, what's it going to be, Rimuru? Will you risk it? Rimuru's face remained stoic. He had no intention of playing Yuki's game. Seal, proceed. Understood. Seal began to alter Dagruel's ultimate skill. As predicted, Dagruel's body began to destabilize. A series of explosions erupted from within Dagruel, causing his massive form to disintegrate into bits. The ground shook from the force, and dust and debris filled the air. Yet, to Yuki's surprise, Rimuru remained calm. In his hands floated the shimmering soul of Dagruel, unscathed by the explosion. Yuki's eyes widened in genuine astonishment before he clapped slowly, a mocking applause. Impressive, Yuki admitted. You've managed to save his soul. But alas, our purpose here is complete. Rimuru's gaze sharpened. You won't get away with this. Yuki chuckled, a dark, resonant sound. Oh, but we already have. The kingdom is in ruins, the swastika has been activated. Your attempts to stop us are too late. With a swift motion, Rimuru launched a powerful attack at Yuki, intending to end this once and for all. However, his strike was met with an impenetrable barrier. Yuki stood behind it, unharmed and still smiling. It's the effect of ultimate skill Michael, Yuki explained. As long as there are those who support me, I cannot be harmed. Rimuru glared at him, frustration boiling beneath his calm exterior. That's unfair. Yuki laughed, the sound echoing ominously. Unfair. You, who possess such overwhelming power, calling me unfair. How ironic. Realizing he couldn't defeat Yuki under these conditions, Rimuru watched as Yuki and Tatsuya began to retreat. Yuki's smug expression remained as they vanished from sight, leaving Rimuru standing amidst the devastation. Who are they? Rimuru wondered aloud, his mind racing with possibilities. He knew they were from the Empire, but their true identities and the extent of their power were still a mystery. As the dust settled, Rimuru was left with the daunting task of assessing the damage and planning the next move. He had underestimated the enemy, and now, the consequences were dire. The swastika had been activated, and Dagruel's control had been a harsh lesson in the lengths their foes would go to achieve their goals. Please give your support. Web links. Web links. If you are interested, then please support. Asthoglho creators' thoughts. 6 comments, 0 vote. Parallel existence. My advanced chapters are already close to finish, look forward to it, guys. Rimuru, his expression stern and resolute, gathered once more with the other demon lords. The air was thick with tension, each leader acutely aware of the gravity of the situation. They had witnessed the activation of the swastikas and the return of Reinhard, but the emergence of Yuki as a formidable enemy added a new layer of complexity to their already dire circumstances. As they assembled in the Grand Hall, the atmosphere was heavy with anticipation. Guy Crimson, Milam, Luminous, and the others looked towards Rimuru, awaiting his report. The destruction left in the wake of Yuki's machinations was fresh in their minds, and the urgency of their meeting was palpable. Rimuru began, I've encountered a new threat. His name is Yuki, and he appears to wield control over the Angel series' ultimate skills. He's also somehow managing to control powerful beings, such as Dagruel. At his words, the tension in the room spiked. The mention of Dagruel, a fellow demon lord now turned against them, sent ripples of shock through the assembly. Rimuru continued, his voice steady despite the gravity of his news. Dagruel was controlled by Yuki through an implanted Angel series ultimate skill. This skill not only allowed Yuki to dominate Dagruel's will but also acted as a bomb set to destroy him if tampered with. Fortunately, I was able to save Dagruel's soul. With a gesture, Rimuru activated his power. The room shimmered with a soft glow as Dagruel's form began to materialize. Slowly, his massive body reconstituted, and he stood before the other demon lords, restored but visibly shaken. Dagruel's eyes opened, filled with a mixture of confusion and relief. He looked around, taking in the sight of his comrades and allies. Rimuru, he rumbled, his voice deep and resonant. Thank you. Rimuru nodded. We're all in this together, Dagruel. We can't afford to lose anyone, especially not to someone like Yuki. The other demon lords were visibly relieved to see Dagruel return to them. Milam stepped forward, her eyes blazing with determination. This Yuki sounds like bad news. What do we know about him? Rimuru shared what little information he had. Yuki is an enigmatic figure, powerful and cunning. He seems to be a key player in the Eastern Empire's plans. His ultimate skill, Michael, makes him nearly invincible as long as he has supporters. He's also somehow able to track the swastikas despite our efforts to relocate them. Guy Crimson frowned, his expression thoughtful. Yuki. If he has control over the Angel series' ultimate skills, he's a significant threat. His abilities and strategy suggest he's been planning this for a long time. Luminous spoke up, her voice tinged with concern. We need to find a way to counteract his control over the Angel series skills. If he can dominate Dagruel, he might be able to control others as well. Rimuru nodded. I agree. Seal and I will work on a solution. In the meantime, we need to strengthen our defenses and protect the remaining swastikas. We can't let Yuki or Reinhard gain any more ground. The demon lords exchanged grim looks. The situation was dire, but they were determined to stand together against this new threat. Each of them had faced unimaginable challenges before, and they would face this one with the same resolve. As the meeting continued, they discussed strategies to counteract Yuki's control, reinforce their defenses, and protect the vulnerable swastikas. They knew that the next move was crucial and that any misstep could lead to catastrophic consequences. Guy Crimson, taking charge, laid out a plan. Each of us will be responsible for guarding the swastikas. Rimuru, since you have the ability to save souls, you should be on standby to assist any of us if Yuki attempts to control another of our allies. Milam slammed her fist into her palm. I'll take charge of the defense around the swastika near my territory. If Yuki or any of his minions show up, they'll regret it. Luminous added, I'll coordinate with my forces to keep a watchful eye on any suspicious activity. We can't let them catch us off guard again. Dagruel, now fully recovered, spoke with determination. I won't let myself be controlled again. I'll fortify my territory and ensure it's ready to repel any attack. Rimuru, grateful for their solidarity, concluded, we have to stay vigilant. Yuki is a cunning adversary, and Reinhard is an immense threat. But together, we stand a chance. Let's prepare for the worst and hope for the best. Rimuru stood resolute, his mind working in tandem with Seal as they devised a plan to counter Yuki's insidious control. Seal, Rimuru thought, we need to find a way to alter the ultimate skills of others so that the Angel series influence is completely erased from their concept. Seal responded with a hint of determination, understood, Master. I will begin the analysis and modification immediately. It will take time, but we will succeed. As Rimuru and Seal worked tirelessly on their plan, another commotion erupted on the other side of the world. Guy Crimson and Milam Nava, sensing the disturbance, exchanged determined glances. Guy nodded to Milam and then turned to Rimuru. Rimuru, you take care of things here. Guard our trump card. If Reinhard gains access to it, everything will be over. Rimuru, understanding the gravity of the task, nodded. Leave it to me. I'll ensure it remains safe. With that, Guy and Milam took to the skies, flying towards the source of the commotion. They knew it wasn't the Empire's doing. Guy had been keeping a close watch on their movements since their recent losses. This could only mean one thing. Reinhard was finally making his move. Guy cursed under his breath, the thought of facing such a powerful adversary weighing heavily on his mind. Milam, though worried, steeled herself for the coming battle. The two demon lords arrived at an eastern kingdom not under the dominion of the Eastern Empire. There, in the sky, stood their old nemesis, Feldway, the one who had toyed with them and the other demon lords thousands of years ago without ever breaking a sweat. His overwhelming might was still fresh in their minds, but Guy and Milam were not the same as before. Their powers had grown significantly, yet the sight of Feldway still sent a chill down their spines. Feldway looked down at them with a condescending smile, his presence exuding an aura of undeniable power. Ah, Guy, Milam, it's been a long time, he greeted them mockingly. Have you come to entertain me once more? Guy's eyes narrowed, and he clenched his fists. This time, it's different, Feldway. We've grown stronger, and we won't let you toy with us again. Milam, her expression fierce and determined, added, we'll make you regret underestimating us. With that, the battle began. Guy and Milam launched themselves at Feldway, their combined assault a whirlwind of power. Guy, a master of hand-to-hand combat, closed the distance with blinding speed, his fists striking with the force of a tempest. Milam, her strength immense, unleashed shockwaves with each strike, aiming to destabilize Feldway. Feldway countered their attacks with torrents of flames, the heat searing the air around them. Despite being incomplete, his power was formidable. Guy and Milam dodged and retaliated, their movements a seamless dance of destruction and defense. Guy moved with agility, weaving through the inferno to land a solid punch on Feldway's jaw, sending him reeling. Milam followed with a barrage of strikes that pushed Feldway further back. The demon lord found himself on the defensive, struggling to keep up with their relentless assault. Frustration etched on Feldway's face as he summoned more intense flames, creating a blazing inferno around him. Guy and Milam momentarily retreated, regrouping with unwavering resolve. We need to break through his defenses, Guy shouted over the roar of the flames. Milam nodded, her determination unyielding. I'll create an opening. You go in for the strike. With a fierce roar, Milam charged forward, her body radiating a blinding light. She smashed through the inferno with sheer force, creating a path for Guy. Feldway, momentarily stunned, found himself exposed. Guy seized the chance, charging through the opening Milam had created. He focused all his power into one devastating punch, aiming directly at Feldway's core. The impact sent shockwaves through the sky, the ground below trembling. Feldway was knocked back, his defenses shattered. But he wasn't defeated. With a roar, he unleashed a wave of fire that engulfed both Guy and Milam. They braced themselves, their bodies straining against the heat and force. Despite the flames, Guy and Milam pressed on. They knew they couldn't let up. Guy continued his relentless assault, his fists moving with blinding speed. Milam kept the pressure on, her attacks growing more powerful. Feldway, now on the back foot, struggled to keep up. His flames, though fierce, began to wane. He realized he couldn't afford to hold back any longer. Summoning all his remaining power, Feldway created a massive vortex of fire, intending to incinerate everything. The sky turned a fiery red, and the heat became unbearable. Guy and Milam stood their ground, eyes locked onto Feldway with unyielding resolve. Milam, we have to end this now, Guy shouted, his voice hoarse from the heat. Milam nodded, eyes blazing. Together, we can do it. With a final, united effort, they charged at Feldway, their combined powers creating an unstoppable force. Feldway, realizing the danger, poured every ounce of his strength into his flames, creating a fiery barrier. But Guy and Milam were undeterred. They pushed through the flames, enduring the searing heat. With one final, mighty strike, they shattered Feldway's barrier and landed a blow that sent him crashing to the ground. Feldway lay there, battered but not defeated, glaring up at them. You've grown stronger, he admitted, voice a low growl. But this isn't over. Guy and Milam, though exhausted, stood tall. We'll be ready, Guy replied, voice steady despite his fatigue. This time, we won't let you win. Feldway, with a pained smirk, slowly rose to his feet. We shall see, he said, before vanishing into the shadows. Just as they began to relax, a sudden, overwhelming aura descended upon the kingdom. Feldway, in his last act of defiance, summoned all his remaining power and unleashed a cataclysmic inferno. Flames erupted from the ground, engulfing the entire kingdom. Guy and Milam's eyes widened in horror as the flames spread uncontrollably. No! Milam screamed, her voice echoing with desperation. They tried to divert the flames, but Feldway's final attack was too powerful. The inferno consumed everything in its path, killing millions. The souls of the fallen activated the swastika hidden beneath the kingdom. Guy and Milam stood amidst the devastation, their hearts heavy with guilt and anger. We failed, Guy muttered, fists clenched in frustration. Milam's eyes filled with tears, her voice a whisper. We couldn't stop him. The swastika's activation sent a shockwave through the air, signaling the next step in the Empire's plan. Despite their efforts, Feldway had succeeded in his mission. Guy and Milam knew they had to regroup and come up with a new strategy. The battle was far from over, and the stakes were higher than ever. With renewed determination, they vowed to stop Reinhard and the Empire, no matter the cost. In the heart of Gladsheimer, the shimmering golden structure that threatened the safety of the world, Reinhard sat on his throne, an aura of overwhelming power radiating from him. His gaze was fixed on Feldway, who knelt before him, the remnants of his power evident in his ragged appearance. So, Feldway, Reinhard's voice echoed through the grand hall, cold and mocking. Was it really necessary to use a parallel existence to fight Guy and Milam? If they knew they were only facing a mere 20% of your true power, they would be devastated. Feldway remained silent, his head bowed. Despite the scorn in Reinhard's voice, there was no hint of fear in his eyes, only respect and unwavering loyalty. Reinhard continued, his lips curling into a sardonic smile. Still, I must admit, I enjoyed the show. It was quite entertaining to see how strong Rimuru Tempest and Yuki Kagarizaka have become. According to my calculations, even you, Feldway, might not be able to win against those two if you were to fight them. Their power has grown exponentially. He leaned back on his throne, his eyes gleaming with a dangerous light. But in the end, they are nothing but worms beneath my feet. None can reach my power. The hall shimmered with the golden light of Gladsheimer, a testament to the 5 swastikas that had been activated. Most of Reinhard's immense power had been restored, and the very fabric of reality seemed to tremble in his presence. We have activated 5 swastikas, Reinhard mused, his voice almost contemplative. However, I am far from done. Activating the remaining 3 swastikas will be a challenge, given that the demon lords are on high alert. Nonetheless, I will make sure to enjoy every second of it. His gaze turned back to Feldway, who still knelt before him. Rise, Feldway. You have done well, even if it was only a fraction of your true strength. The time for games is over. We will proceed with our plan and crush any opposition that stands in our way. Feldway stood, his expression resolute. As you command, my lord. The remaining swastikas will be activated, and your full power will be restored. Reinhard's laughter echoed through Gladsheimer, a sound that sent shivers down the spines of even the bravest warriors. Indeed, Feldway. The world will soon be destroyed and none shall stand in my way. Sitting upon his throne, Reinhard looked towards Zelenus, his loyal servant. His voice, calm yet commanding, echoed throughout the vast chamber. Zelenus, fetch Rudra. Or should I say, Michael. If his purpose in opening the swastikas was to pique my curiosity, he has succeeded. My magnanimous heart will grant him an audience. Zelenus bowed deeply, his respect for Reinhard unwavering. As you command, my lord. With a swift exit, Zelenus left the hall to retrieve Michael. It did not take long before Zelenus returned, with Michael, inhabiting the body of Emperor Rudra, following closely behind. As they entered the grand hall, Michael's eyes scanned the surroundings, taking in the grandeur of Gladsheimer and the overwhelming presence of Reinhard. Michael, still maintaining the guise of Rudra, stepped forward confidently. Reinhard, it is an honor to stand before you. Reinhard's piercing gaze fell upon Michael, a knowing smile playing on his lips. Cut the act, Michael. I am well aware of who and what you are, a manas, an ultimate skill that has gained sentience. Michael's confident demeanor faltered for a moment, replaced by a flicker of shock. He quickly regained his composure, but the unease lingered. You are indeed perceptive, Lord Reinhard. But surely, you must understand the purpose of my actions. I seek to revive the creator, Beldanava, your father. Reinhard's expression darkened, his eyes narrowing with a cold amusement. Revive Beldanava. My father, whom I destroyed. You dare speak of reviving him. Michael's confidence wavered again, but he pressed on, believing he could reason with Reinhard. Yes, Reinhard. You should be overjoyed. Reviving Beldanava will restore balance and order to the world. Ha 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 ha. Reinhard's laughter was a chilling sound that reverberated through the hall. Balance. Order. Do you think I care for such trivialities? My philosophy is one of absolute power. I destroy everything I love. My father was not an exception. I killed him and bestowed him with destruction. Michael's eyes widened in realization, understanding the depth of Reinhard's conviction. He had underestimated Reinhard's ruthlessness and absolute power. Despite the castle guard ability that gave him an invincible barrier, Michael felt a shiver of fear. He knew Reinhard's power was absolute, capable of breaking through any defense. Reinhard, I implore you to reconsider. With your power and my guidance, we can achieve true perfection, Michael pleaded, his voice tinged with desperation. Reinhard's smile faded, replaced by a look of utter disdain. You still do not understand, do you? There is no perfection in this world. Only destruction, at least not yet. Perfection will only be reached by me. With a mere flick of his hand, Reinhard unleashed a torrent of golden energy that shattered Michael's castle guard. The invincible barrier that Michael had relied on disintegrated, leaving him vulnerable and exposed. No. This can't be, Michael muttered, his voice trembling with fear. Reinhard's eyes gleamed with cold amusement as he raised his hand once more. Your existence ends here, Michael. Your dream of reviving Veldanava is nothing but a farce. A blinding flash of light enveloped Michael, and in an instant, his body was disintegrated, leaving nothing but a fading echo of his presence. The power of Reinhard was absolute, and even the mightiest of barriers were meaningless before him. As the light faded, Reinhard sat back on his throne, his expression one of satisfaction. Let this be a lesson to all who dare to defy me. My power is absolute, and none shall stand in my way. Zelenus, having witnessed the spectacle, bowed deeply once more. Your power is truly unmatched, my lord. Reinhard nodded, a triumphant smile playing on his lips. Indeed. The remaining swastikas will be activated, and the world will tremble before my might. None shall escape the destruction I bring. The golden light of Gladsheimer shimmered brighter than ever, a testament to the power and dominance of Reinhard. The world stood on the brink of annihilation, and only the strongest could hope to survive the wrath of the being who sat upon the throne, his power absolute and unchallenged. Dash. Please give your support. Web links. Please give your support. Web links. Asthoglho creators thoughts. 6 comments 0 vote. Brother and sister. I initially wanted to post 2 chapters a day, but it seems troublesome and I have no motivation for that, so bear with this guys. Dash. In the Eastern Empire, Yuki Nava's smile stretched wider as he sensed the abrupt cessation of Michael's life force. The ultimate skill that had once animated Rudra was now extinguished, leaving a void filled with Yuki's burgeoning power. He felt the influx of energy coursing through his veins, a testament to the power dynamics he had meticulously orchestrated. Yuki had always been aware of the weaknesses inherent in the castle guard ability. Having 2 users of such a skill could be detrimental, and Michael's overconfidence had played directly into his hands. Reinhard Nava, with his absolute dominance, had swiftly and predictably crushed Michael's foolish ambition. Yuki's patience had paid off. From the beginning, Yuki and Michael had never been true partners. Their alliance was purely transactional, a deal of convenience. The agreement was simple: if one were to fall, the other would inherit everything. With Michael's demise, Yuki now possessed the full breadth of their combined resources and power. He stared at his reflection, noting the energy radiating from his body. The infusion of power from Michael's death had bolstered his confidence. The next day dawned with an unsettling disturbance. Across the world, people looked to the skies, their eyes widening in terror and awe. Hovering above them was a gargantuan golden skeleton, its sheer size defying comprehension. The colossal structure was a skeletal titan, its bony frame shimmering with an eerie luminescence. Reinhard stood proudly within the skull of the giant skeleton, his gaze cast downward upon the world's inhabitants. His presence exuded an oppressive aura, a palpable reminder of his overwhelming power. The air around him crackled with energy, and his eyes glinted with a mix of amusement and contempt. The golden skeleton was a testament to Reinhard's dominion, a declaration of his impending reign. Its appearance alone was enough to send waves of panic and despair through the populace. People screamed and fled in terror, their minds unable to process the magnitude of the threat looming above them. Reinhard's gaze swept across the landscape, taking in the scenes of chaos below. His lips curled into a satisfied smile as he watched the pandemonium unfold. The fear he instilled was intoxicating, a reminder of his unparalleled might. Yet, beneath his amusement lay a calculated mind, one that was always several steps ahead of his adversaries. On the ground, the response was immediate. Armies mobilized, and nations scrambled to defend themselves against this apocalyptic vision. But deep down, even the most hardened warriors knew that their efforts would be futile. Against the power of Reinhard Nava, there could be no victory, only survival. Meanwhile, Yuki Nava watched the unfolding spectacle from a safe distance. He observed Reinhard's display with a mixture of fascination and trepidation. The golden skeleton was a clear message to the world. Reinhard's power was absolute, his reign inevitable. But Yuki was not dissuaded. He had anticipated this move, and his plans were already in motion. With Michael out of the picture, Yuki's path to challenging Reinhard was clearer. He knew that facing the three Einherjar would be a formidable task, but with the power he now wielded, he was confident in his gamble. The swastika at his side was both a weapon and a shield, a crucial element in his strategy. Yuki's mind raced as he considered his next move. Negotiating with Reinhard would require finesse and cunning, qualities he possessed in abundance. He was prepared to use every ounce of his power and intellect to turn the tide in his favor. Unlike Michael, he understood the true nature of their enemy. Reinhard's arrogance was both his strength and his weakness. As the world reeled from the appearance of the golden skeleton, Yuki set his plan into motion. He dispatched his agents to key locations, ensuring that every piece of the puzzle was in place. The swastika would be his ace, the card he would play when the time was right. He would approach Reinhard not as a supplicant, but as an equal, ready to exploit any advantage. The day wore on, and the skies remained dominated by the ominous presence of the golden skeleton. Panic had given way to a tense, fearful silence as people awaited the next move. Nations held their breath, their leaders struggling to devise a response to the unparalleled threat. Within the skull of the skeleton, Reinhard continued to observe. His mind was a whirl of thoughts and plans, each one more intricate than the last. He reveled in the fear he had sown, yet his focus remained sharp. The activation of the remaining swastikas would be a challenge, but one he was eager to embrace. As night fell, the golden skeleton remained a constant reminder of the peril facing the world. Reinhard's power was a beacon of destruction, casting a long shadow over everything. A change would sweep across the landscape as a figure materialized in front of the colossal golden skeleton. The air shimmered with energy, the atmosphere charged with an intensity that could only mean one thing: Milam Nava had arrived. Her eyes locked onto the figure of Reinhard, her elder brother, standing dominantly within the skull of the skeleton. Milam's heart ached with a mix of nostalgia and confusion. She remembered the Reinhard who had been so kind, the brother who had raised her with love and care. Thousands of years ago, he had been her protector, her mentor, and her only family after the loss of their parents. Now, here he was, orchestrating chaos and destruction. Brother. Milam's voice rang out, a plea and a demand all in one. Why are you doing this? What happened to the brother I knew? Reinhard's gaze shifted to Milam, his expression unreadable. For a moment, there was a flicker of something in his eyes, a hint of the brother she once knew. But it was gone as quickly as it appeared, replaced by a cold, unyielding stare. There is no brother. Reinhard's voice was like a blade, cutting through the air. I have no sister. Milam's breath hitched, the words striking her like a physical blow. She had always known Reinhard to be fierce and unyielding, but this was different. His words were laced with a deliberate cruelty, meant to sever the bond they once shared. Don't lie to me. Milam shouted, her voice breaking. You raised me, Reinhard. You were my only family. Why are you doing this? Reinhard's lips curled into a cruel smile. I destroy everything I love, Milam. That's my nature. You are no exception. Tears welled in Milam's eyes, the pain of his rejection cutting deeper than any physical wound. She had always looked up to Reinhard, had always believed in his strength and wisdom. Now, his words were tearing her apart. Why, brother? Milam whispered, her voice trembling. Why would you do this to me? Reinhard's eyes were hard, devoid of any warmth or compassion. You're fragile, Milam. And weakness has no place in this world. I've given you all the reasons you need to hate me. So hate me, with every fiber of your being. Milam's heart shattered. The brother she loved was gone, replaced by this monstrous figure. Her sorrow quickly turned to rage, a fury that burned hotter with each passing second. Her power surged, an unstoppable force fueled by her anger and heartbreak. Reinhard watched her, his expression impassive. He saw the power building within her, the sheer force of her rage. Yet he remained calm, almost indifferent. With a scream of fury, Milam unleashed her power, the ground beneath her cracking and splitting from the sheer intensity of her energy. She launched herself at the golden skeleton, her fists crackling with destructive force. But Reinhard was unfazed. With a mere flick of his wrist, the skeleton's massive hand swung down, slapping Milam to the ground with a force that left the earth trembling. She crashed into the ground, the impact forming a massive crater around her. Reinhard looked down at her, his gaze cold and unrelenting. You forget, Milam, he said, his voice dripping with condescension. Your ultimate skill was mine to begin with. There is no way you can defeat me. Milam lay in the crater, her body battered and bruised. But the fire in her eyes had not dimmed. She glared up at Reinhard with a mix of rage and determination. Her brother might have turned against her, but she would not be broken. Reinhard's cold eyes bore into hers. He saw the defiance in her gaze, the unyielding spirit that refused to be crushed. It was both a source of frustration and a strange sense of pride. Despite his words and actions, part of him admired her tenacity. You think your rage makes you strong, Reinhard said, his tone mocking. But it only makes you reckless. And recklessness will be your undoing. Milam struggled to her feet, her body shaking from the effort. I won't give up on you, brother, she said through gritted teeth. I'll find a way to bring you back, no matter what. Reinhard's expression darkened. There is no bringing me back, Milam. This is who I am now. Accept it, and perhaps you'll find the strength to survive in this world. With those final, cutting words, Reinhard turned his back on her, the golden skeleton shifting and moving as he directed his attention elsewhere. Milam's heart ached with a deep, abiding pain, but her resolve only grew stronger. She would not give up on her brother, no matter how far he had fallen. As she watched him move away, a single tear rolled down her cheek. I'll save you, brother, she whispered to herself. Even if it's the last thing I do. Reinhard heard her words, but he did not respond. His mind was set, his path clear. He would destroy everything he loved, and Milam was no exception. But deep within him, a small part of his old self watched with sorrow, unable to completely sever the bond they once shared. The world watched in silent horror as the golden skeleton continued its path of destruction, with Milam standing as a lone figure of defiance against the overwhelming darkness that her brother had become. Reinhard sat on his throne, a vast and imposing structure of blackened steel and golden inlays. His fingers drummed against the armrest as he pondered his next move. The demon lords had proven to be a tenacious lot, consistently attempting to thwart his plans. He had to admit, their persistence amused him. If they wanted to play games, then he would respond in kind, but on his terms. A cruel smile spread across his face as his eyes shifted towards Feldway and Zelenus. It seems our dear demon lords are intent on disrupting our progress, he said, his voice a mixture of amusement and menace. If they wish to challenge us, let's give them something to truly fear. Feldway's flames flickered around him, casting eerie shadows on the walls. Zelenus stood stoically, his massive form radiating an aura of annihilation. They both awaited Reinhard's orders with a mix of anticipation and eagerness. Feldway, Reinhard began, I want you to visit a few kingdoms. Burn them to the ground. Make sure the demon lords are aware of your actions. Let them see the futility of their resistance. Feldway's eyes gleamed with a dark light as he nodded. It will be done, my lord. And you, Zelenus, Reinhard continued, turning his gaze to the other warrior. Your fists will be the harbingers of despair. Crush these kingdoms until they are nothing but dust. The demon lords will have no choice but to confront us. Zelenus grinned, a sinister expression that promised destruction. Consider it done. Reinhard leaned back, his cruel smile widening. Threaten them. Demand the swastikas. If they refuse, destroy everything they hold dear. Let's see how long their resolve lasts. With their orders clear, Feldway and Zelenus departed, each intent on fulfilling Reinhard's command with ruthless efficiency. In the kingdom of Galgrath, Random Kingdom, the people lived their lives in relative peace. The sun shone brightly, casting a warm glow over the bustling markets and quiet homes. It was a typical day, one filled with the sounds of laughter and commerce. However, this tranquility was shattered when a massive shadow loomed over the kingdom. Feldway descended from the sky, his form wreathed in infernal flames. Panic spread like wildfire as the people saw the harbinger of their doom. Screams filled the air, and chaos erupted as the citizens tried to flee from the impending disaster. With a wave of his hand, Feldway unleashed a torrent of fire that engulfed entire city blocks. Buildings crumbled under the intense heat, and the streets were filled with the acrid stench of burning flesh and smoke. Feldway's laughter echoed through the flames, a chilling sound that added to the horror of the scene. In another part of the world, the kingdom of Alforn faced a different kind of destruction. Zelenus arrived with a thunderous crash, his fists glowing with a terrible energy. He moved through the kingdom like a force of nature, his punches reducing buildings to rubble and leaving massive craters in their wake. The people of Alforn could do nothing but watch in terror as their homes and lives were obliterated. Zelenus showed no mercy, his every strike a testament to his overwhelming power. The air was filled with the sound of destruction and the cries of the dying. News of these atrocities quickly reached the demon lords. Guy Crimson, Dagruel, Dino, and Milam convened in a hastily arranged meeting, their expressions grim. Rimuru Tempest joined them, his face a mask of determination. The loss of Frey had already struck a heavy blow, and now they faced an even greater threat. "They're making a statement," Guy said, his voice low and dangerous. "They want us to know they can destroy everything we hold dear. We can't let them continue this rampage," Milam said, her fists clenched in anger. "We have to stop them. They're trying to force us into a corner," Rimuru added. "But we can't play by their rules. We need to be smart about this." The demon lords nodded in agreement. Despite the gravity of the situation, their resolve had only strengthened. They would confront Feldway and Zelenus, not out of desperation, but with a carefully crafted plan. Feldway stood amidst the burning ruins of Galgrath, watching with satisfaction as the flames consumed everything in sight. He was confident in his power, certain that no one could stand against him. That confidence was shaken, however, when he sensed multiple powerful auras approaching. Guy Crimson and Dagruel appeared first, their combined presence like a tidal wave of power. Feldway's flames roared higher in response, but he knew this battle would not be easy. Dino and Milam arrived moments later, their expressions steely with determination. Finally, Rimuru appeared, his aura calm but deadly. "This ends now," Guy declared, his voice carrying a promise of retribution. Feldway's laughter rang out, defiant and mocking. "You think you can stop me? You're welcome to try." Without further words, the battle began. Flames clashed against raw power as the demon lords launched their attacks. Guy moved with blinding speed, his fists striking with the force of a hurricane. Dagruel's massive form tore through the flames, each step shaking the ground. Dino's agile strikes and Milam's raw power added to the onslaught, creating a whirlwind of destruction. The battle raged on, with Guy Crimson and Dagruel pressing Feldway relentlessly. Despite the overwhelming power Feldway wielded, he found himself increasingly on the defensive. The two demon lords fought with a unity and ferocity that pushed him to his limits. Feldway's flames roared and clashed against their attacks, but it was clear that this was not going as smoothly as he had anticipated. Guy's swift, devastating blows and Dagruel's overwhelming strength combined into a formidable assault. Feldway's attempts to counter their moves were met with equal if not greater force. It was a battle of titans, and the battlefield bore the scars of their conflict. Craters, scorch marks, and shattered terrain told the tale of their clash. Amidst this chaos, Feldway didn't notice the subtle preparations being made by Rimuru and Ramirez in the background. Ramirez, the fairy queen, had been working tirelessly on a powerful primitive magic, a spell so ancient and potent that it required years of preparation. And now, the time had come to unleash it. As Feldway unleashed another wave of flames, Guy and Dagruel exchanged a knowing glance. It was time. Rimuru nodded to Ramirez, who began to chant, her voice resonating with an ancient power. The ground beneath them started to glow with intricate runes, forming a vast magic circle that surrounded Feldway. Feldway's eyes widened as he realized something was amiss. The air hummed with energy, and the ground pulsed with a light that grew more intense by the second. He attempted to break free, launching a furious barrage of attacks to disrupt whatever spell was being cast, but Guy and Dagruel redoubled their efforts, keeping him occupied and contained within the circle. Rimuru, standing at the edge of the magic circle, activated the final part of the spell. The runes blazed with a brilliant light, and the air itself seemed to warp and twist. Feldway's form flickered as the magic took hold, a space-time distortion beginning to envelop him. "No!" Feldway roared, realizing the trap too late. His flames flared wildly, but the magic was too strong. The ancient power of primitive magic, honed and focused by Ramirez, was something even he couldn't easily counter. Ramirez's primitive magic is also outside the system, it works regardless of anything so it can fight against Feldway. With a final, desperate surge of energy, Feldway attempted to break free, but the magic circle held firm. His form shimmered and wavered before being drawn into a vortex of light. The ground where he stood returned to its normal state, and the battlefield grew eerily quiet. The demon lords watched as the last remnants of Feldway's presence vanished, sealed away in a different space with no way out. The sealing spell had worked, and one of their greatest adversaries was now trapped in an inescapable prison. Guy let out a breath he hadn't realized he'd been holding, and Dagruel straightened, his massive form relaxing slightly. Ramirez, exhausted but triumphant, collapsed into Rimaru's arms. Is it done? Milam asked, her voice trembling with a mix of relief and exhaustion. Rimuru nodded. It's done. Feldway is sealed. The group of demon lords allowed themselves a moment of respite, knowing that while one threat had been neutralized, their battle was far from over. Reinhardt and his plans still loomed large, and they knew that more challenges lay ahead. But for now, they had achieved a significant victory, one that bolstered their resolve to protect their world at any cost. Please give your support. Web links. Please give your support. Web links. Asthoglho creators' thoughts.